Chapter 675. The eastern shallow ocean was vast, almost one-fifth of true spirit continent. Dragon God Celestial Palace was the most powerful force in the eastern shallow ocean, so its territory was naturally the largest as well. Teleporting from the teleportation hall to the Azure Dragon Hall couldn't be done in an instant. A certain amount of time was required. On a huge island 15 million li away from the Dragon God Celestial Palace, towering buildings rose and fell one after another. These buildings were mostly cyan-colored. Looking down from the sky, they looked like the scales of an azure dragon, reflecting a unique radiance under the sunlight. All the buildings gathered together, looking like a coiling azure dragon. This island was called Azure Dragon Island, and the force on the island was precisely the head of the Dragon God Celestial Palace's 5 great halls, Azure Dragon Hall. Inside a palace in the core region of Azure Dragon Hall, the remaining 2 deputy leaders were waiting, accompanied by dozens of great attendants. Apart from the leader, all the higher-ups of Azure Dragon Hall had arrived, waiting for the new deputy leader of Dragon God Celestial Palace. They knew that this new deputy leader was certainly not ordinary, and might even be a hidden expert of Dragon God Celestial Palace. Therefore, they had to cooperate and give him sufficient attention. "Brother Wu, who do you think the higher-ups will send this time?" one of the deputy leaders asked the deputy next to him. The deputy surnamed Wu analyzed. Strength too low, not enough to convince the masses. Strength too high, not many. Could it be the eldest core disciple Lin Songhai or the second disciple Li Feng? Lin Songhai's strength is enough, but one can't rely on personal strength in war. One must have a certain level of leadership. In this aspect, Lin Songhai is quite unique. As for Li Feng, honestly speaking, although he looks amiable on the surface, he's actually quite arrogant and condescending. If these two are impossible, then it should be an expert we don't know about. I think so too. And they're coming. As the two spoke, the teleportation gate at the center of the palace lit up. Along with a whirlpool of light, dozens of figures appeared. Seeing the dozens of people in front of them, it would be impossible for them not to be astonished. They had thought of everything, except for the fact that they were all youngsters. The oldest among them was Lin Songhai, who seemed to be in his 30s. "Lin Songhai, congratulations!" Stunned for a moment, Vice Palace Master Wu revealed a smile. Although Lin Songhai was a loner and wasn't suitable to be a Vice Palace Master, since it was the will of the Elders Guild, they naturally wouldn't oppose it. Furthermore, leadership ability could be cultivated. Perhaps Lin Songhai would be able to adapt to the position of Vice Palace Master. "Lin Songhai, we will be colleagues from now on," the other Vice Palace Master said with a smile. Lin Songhai was somewhat baffled by the two's words, but he was after all a perceptive person, and quickly understood, saying indifferently, "I'm not." Chen Yusen hurriedly came to the rescue and said, "You two have misunderstood. This is Senior Brother Yi Chen, who is about to take over as Vice Hall Master." "This one is?" The 2 Vice Hall Masters were a little embarrassed. In fact, they couldn't be blamed. They were used to being prejudiced by first impressions, coupled with the fact that they were all young people. They subconsciously ignored Yi Chen, who looked the youngest, and regarded Lin Songhai as the leader of the group of young people. After all, they only had time to glance at everyone's appearance. "This one is Yi Chen," Yi Chen said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. The two's gazes converged on Yi Chen's body, inwardly saying, "So young." Although Yi Chen was already 26 years old, due to his rapid cultivation base advancement, he had entered Astral Reaching Realm only a year later than Xianhou, and entered Sea of Soul Realm a year earlier than Xianhou. Therefore, he still looked to be in his early 20s. If one overlooked his aura, they would easily see him as a young genius who had just left home. However, they clearly wouldn't overlook Yi Chen's aura. If Lin Songhai was an unsheathed treasured sword, then Yi Chen was a peerless sword half unsheathed. He had a sharp edge, but was not overly ostentatious, giving off an unfathomable feeling. Good fellow. The two had been fighting with the experts of the four great forces for many years, so they were quite good at judging people. Lin Songhai's sharpness had indeed startled them, but Yi Chen's unfathomability made them even more apprehensive. This one is Wu Chuan, and this is Su Danian. The Vice Hall Master surnamed Wu introduced himself. Yi Chen faintly nodded and said, "We're already aware of Azure Dragon Hall's situation. This time, we've come to settle this matter. Now, take us to Hall Master Wei Longtao." His Vice Hall Master's command token needed to be taken from the latter's hands. Otherwise, it wouldn't be justifiable. "Alright, come with me." Wu Chuan and Su Danian turned around and led Yi Chen and the rest out. Passing through the crowd, Yi Chen saw Yao Yifeng, who was the head attendant. However, Yao Yifeng's eyelids were drooping, pretending not to see Yi Chen. At this moment, Yao Yifeng's mind was in chaos as he mumbled to himself, "How can it be him? How could he have become a Vice Hall Master? It's been less than 2 years. He can't possibly have the strength of a Vice Hall Master. Azure Dragon Hall's Vice Hall Master is already not much weaker than Yellow Dragon Hall's Zhang Jingguang. His strength is definitely not that high. Sending him here is probably another trick from above, wanting him to temper himself." After Yao Yifeng arrived at Azure Dragon Hall, he was no longer clear about the matters of True Spirit Continent, nor did he know about Yi Chen's achievements in the past 2 years. Therefore, he believed that even if Yi Chen's strength had increased by a lot, it would still be impossible for him to reach the level of Azure Dragon Hall's Vice Hall Master. It should be known that Azure Dragon Hall was the head of the 5 great halls, and its average battle strength was much higher than the other 4 halls. Moreover, Yellow Dragon Hall was publicly acknowledged as the weakest. Only after Yi Chen walked out of the hall did Yao Yifeng raise his eyelids and coldly glanced at Yi Chen. The Azure Dragon Hall Master was a serious-looking middle-aged man. He wore a light green robe with an azure dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws embroidered on it. On his right thumb, there was an emerald green thumb ring. This thumb ring was extremely large, about the size of a wine cup. "Greetings, Hall Master Wei." Yi Chen, Lin Songhai, and the rest spoke. Wei Longtao sized up Yi Chen with a doubtful gaze. He had already recognized Yi Chen as the genius favored by Palace Master Dragon King. However, the latter's cultivation base was merely at the peak of mid-sea of Soul Realm. Even if his aura seemed a bit deep and immeasurable, he shouldn't be able to suppress Lin Songhai and become the person in charge this time. As for the matters of True Spirit Continent, he had long since stopped caring about them. Being able to recognize Yi Chen at a glance meant that he was paying enough attention. "This is your Vice Hall Master's command token." Wei Longtao didn't say anything else and took out a little Azure Dragon command token from his storage ring. He exerted a bit of force and threw it toward Yi Chen. Receiving the little Azure Dragon command token, Yi Chen casually glanced at it before putting it away in his storage ring. Wei Longtao then said, "Lin Songhai, Chen Yusin, Luo Yunsong, I appoint you 3 as head attendants. You'll listen to Yi Chen's command. The rest will all be battle attendants, also under Yi Chen's command." The position of head attendants in Azure Dragon Hall was second only to the Vice Hall Master, and battle attendants were usually Sea of Soul Realm Taoists. Although only Yi Chen's group of 4 had Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, and the rest were late astral reaching realm, the disciples of Dragon God's Celestial Palace couldn't be compared to ordinary members of Azure Dragon Hall. Giving them the status of battle attendants wasn't excessive. In any case, they were only here to temper themselves and wouldn't stay for long. Yes. Lin Songhai, Chen Yusin, and the rest didn't have any objections. Hall Master Wei, deputy whose troops were almost completely annihilated. Only a dozen or so people remain. I'll need to reorganize them. Yi Chen said. You don't need to worry about this. The new troops have already been gathered. Altogether, 350 people, 40 Sea of Soul Realm, and 310 Astral Reaching Realm. You can rest for today. Tomorrow, I'll send someone to tell them to wait at the drill ground. You can get to know them then. Alright, then Yi Chen will take his leave first. Yi Chen's group left. Once Yi Chen and the rest left, Wei Longtao creased his brows. Could it be that the higher-ups think that sending one Yi Chen and 3 core disciples can solve the problem? He didn't understand. The next day, in the morning on the east side of the drill ground, 350 people were gathered. Standing at the front were 40 people, all of whom had Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. Among them, there were even 4 late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, consisting of 1 woman and 3 men. Hey, what kind of person do you think the new deputy is? A middle-aged woman with an enchanting figure stretched her back and chuckled. The robust man beside the middle-aged woman said, "It'd be best if he's stronger than us. Otherwise, I won't accept it." Hee, you can rest assured. The higher-ups can't possibly send someone weaker than you. At the very least, he should be at the same level as Deputy Hu. No, he should be much stronger than Deputy Hu. Otherwise, there would be no need for the higher-ups to send someone. They could just directly pick someone from the Azure Dragon Hall. The middle-aged scholar with a long beard shook his head. The middle-aged woman guessed, perhaps there's a traitor in the upper echelons of the Azure Dragon Hall. That's why the higher-ups personally sent someone. Hee, you'll all be disappointed. I know the new deputy. He's not as strong as you think. Moreover, he's a bit selfish and doesn't care about consequences. The last of the 4 said. You know him? Yao Yifeng. The middle-aged woman revealed an astonished expression. Yao Yifeng was about to speak, but suddenly shut his mouth. In his line of sight, the blue-robed Yi Chen was leading a group of Dragon God Celestial Palace disciples. Lin Songhai wasn't among them. Senior brother Yi, eldest senior brother, is just like this. Don't mind him too much. Chen Yusin was still explaining Lin Songhai's actions. Yi Chen said, You don't need to worry. I've already said that he can disobey my orders as long as it doesn't affect others. Yi Chen's objective this time was to help Azure Dragon Hall salvage the situation. Whether Lin Songhai listened or not had nothing to do with him, and he couldn't be bothered to care. In any case, it didn't matter if Lin Songhai's strength was no weaker than the second elders. Of course, if they suffered losses because of him, he couldn't be blamed. Chapter 676. This is the new deputy? Including the middle-aged woman, everyone was flabbergasted. No matter how one looked at him, he looked like he was in his early 20s. His real age should be around 26 or 27. Such a young man was unexpectedly the newly appointed deputy, which somewhat caught them off guard. What the hell are the higher-ups doing? Sending a brat over? His cultivation base is not bad, but it's not at the level of deputy. Letting a brat lead us will only lead us to a quick death. Even if I offend him, I'll make him understand. Let's observe the situation first. Perhaps there's a mistake. Everyone discussed spiritedly through Zhen Yuan transmission. Yao Yifeng sneered, waiting for Yi Chen to make a fool of himself. This was not the headquarters, where everyone was thinking about how to preserve their lives. A deputy who wasn't strong enough wouldn't be able to obtain everyone's support. If Yi Chen didn't display sufficient strength, he wouldn't be able to sit firmly in his position, even if he was sent by the higher-ups. The drill ground was huge, and a gale was blowing fiercely. Yi Chen walked 30 steps in front of the crowd and stopped. Chen Yusin and the rest consciously moved to the side, forming the second camp. Slightly raising his head, Yi Chen's gaze swept around. When he passed by Yao Yifeng, he didn't deliberately stop, letting nature take its course. This formation was not bad. Not counting Chen Yusin and the rest, among the 40 Sea of Soul Realm experts, 4 had late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, 15 had mid Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, and 21 had early Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. Such a powerful force had already surpassed peak 6th grade sections. Any sixth-grade sect would not be their opponent, and they would be able to sweep through them. I'm called Yi Chen, the new deputy. I believe you have a lot to say, so say it now. I won't look into your words and deeds, but if you don't speak now, don't blame me for being ruthless in the future. Yi Chen knew that his prestige was still not enough, and these people would definitely not listen to him. Therefore, he had to solve this problem once and for all, in case something went wrong in the future. With his power, if he could not even solve this problem, then he could just leave. Everyone looked at each other. They did not expect Yi Chen to be so straightforward. The middle-aged woman cleared her throat and said, "Deputy Palace Lord Yi, I'm Xing Meilian. I'd like to ask, how old are you?" 26. Yi Chen replied. So young. Although they didn't want to accept Yi Chen as the deputy, Yi Chen's talent was enough to make them sigh in admiration. After all, having a cultivation base at the peak of mid-sea of Soul Realm at the age of 26 was simply unheard of in the eastern shallow ocean. It was no wonder that the higher-ups had sent him. Unfortunately, they were all people who lived on the edge of a blade. How to live longer was what they should think about, and not the talent of others. With all due respect, you are too young. You may not be able to lead us to success. Yi Chen was, after all, a deputy sent by the higher-ups. Therefore, the person who spoke had to weigh his words as much as possible. He didn't directly mention that Yi Chen's strength was insufficient, but rather his leadership ability. At the very least, it would look better on his face. The corner of Yi Chen's mouth curved. With all due respect, age is not a problem. Only mediocre people lack confidence because of age. I have never lacked confidence. Relying on confidence alone is not enough. Xing Meilian continued the other's words. Yi Chen shook his head. I'm sorry, but I can't give you a satisfactory answer at the moment. A leader's ability can only be displayed in battle. Now, you'd better speak your mind. If you don't, you won't have another chance. Senior Brother Yi is indeed Senior Brother Yi. His words are watertight, and nobody can find any flaws. Among the people of the same generation as Chun Yusen, no one could compare to Yi Chen. He didn't need to rely on his aura to suppress others, nor did he need to rely on his status. He relied on his calm mind and watertight words. Is this brat really only 26 years old? Xing Meilian stared at Yi Chen with a strange expression. She had to admit that Yi Chen was gradually gaining the initiative. However, this alone wasn't enough. The key was whether he had the strength or not. Without strength, it was all nonsense. The muscular man beside Xing Meilian couldn't help but say, as a deputy of the Azure Dragon Hall, other than leadership ability, you must also have personal strength. I hope you understand this point. Yi Chen asked back, then what kind of strength do you think is needed to reach the standard? The muscular man was stunned for a moment before he said, the previous deputy could defeat me in 3 moves. Now that he's dead, you need to defeat me in at least 2 moves. The muscular man wasn't purposely making things difficult for Yi Chen. Previously, when he fought with Deputy Hu, it was just a sparring session. Otherwise, 1 or 2 moves would have been enough to defeat him. Now, he wanted Yi Chen to defeat him in 2 moves, which had already reduced the difficulty by a lot. Sure, you make the first move. Yi Chen was already prepared for this. In the end, the only thing that everyone was worried about was that he wasn't strong enough. This was what they wanted to say. Be careful. The muscular man's weapon was a giant axe. He slowly walked out of the group and stood 20 steps in front of Yi Chen. With a low roar, his body was like a small mountain pressing down on Yi Chen. The violent wind was enough to flatten a large building. When he was 10 steps away from Yi Chen, he raised his giant axe and chopped down. The dark yellow axe aura formed an arc because of its extreme speed. Shaking his head, Yi Chen pointed his finger. Arrogant! Too arrogant! Seeing Yi Chen fighting with only 1 finger, everyone frowned. Yao Yifeng even sneered. This muscular man was called Jiang Hanliang. Although he was weaker than him, He wasn't that much weaker. Plus, his weapon was a giant axe, which had a powerful attack power. Even if an expert at the same level used a weapon, they might not be able to win, not to mention a finger. Only Chen Yusin was not surprised. She had seen Yi Chen defeat her second senior brother Li Feng with only one finger. Jiang Hanliang was obviously angrier. He pushed his strength to the limit and chopped out with his axe. The wind and clouds changed. Lose. The axe soon arrived in front of Yi Chen. Creak. Yi Chen's finger and the axe aura collided. Shockingly, this indestructible axe aura immediately fell apart when it came into contact with Yi Chen's finger. It was as fragile as tofu. Then, the tip of his finger touched the giant axe's blade. The axe's blade quickly twisted and curled, making a teeth-aching metal sound. Bang! Finally, Jiang Hanliang could no longer hold the giant axe. His hand loosened, and the axe flew out, smashing a huge pit in the drill ground. As for Jiang Hanliang himself, he was one step slower than the giant axe. He was also sent flying, crashing into the crowd. How did he get here, and how did he go back? I wonder if you guys are satisfied with my strength. Since they didn't have enough prestige, Yi Chen needed to teach them a lesson. He was glad that someone came to find trouble with him. I'm not talented, but I'm here to learn from you. The middle-aged scholar on Xing Melian's right walked out. Yi Chen's strength was actually no weaker than Vice Leader Hu. However, it was still not enough. One had to know that Vice Leader Hu had died under the siege of the four major forces. What was the point of sending someone with strength similar to Vice Leader Hu? Speed and Qinggong are my advantages, the middle-aged scholar reminded Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded. Be careful, 100 changes of gale. The middle-aged scholar mainly cultivated the wind profound, and his movement technique had fused with the wind profound. His entire body had already lost its form, leaving behind only a formless gale. The gale was everywhere, fiercely attacking Yi Chen from every direction. It seemed as if 100 phantoms were attacking Yi Chen. This time, he definitely won't be able to finish the battle in a few moves. Yao Yifeng thought. The middle-aged scholar was called Yan Quan. In terms of movement technique, there were very few people who could match him. Even the leader of the Azure Dragon Hall might not be able to beat him. It should be known that among all the martial arts, movement technique was the hardest to integrate into profound, not to mention Yan Quan, who had studied profound movement technique to such a degree. Yi Chen smiled lightly. He did not need to compete in speed. Of course, if he were to compete in speed, he would be 5 streets ahead of him. But that would still not be enough to convince the crowd. Therefore, he only wanted to compete in observation and accuracy. Without even looking, he put up his right index and middle finger and waved it in a slanted manner. Puff! Yan Quan seemed to have been knocked out of the void. Blood spurted out from the corner of his mouth. The clothes on his chest were torn, revealing the inner armor inside. With one finger, Yan Quan's Qinggong was immediately broken. It was an understatement. The wind was gentle. Hiss! Xing Melian sucked in a breath of cold air. She couldn't be any clearer about how powerful Yan Quan's movement technique was. There might be people in Azure Dragon Hall who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him, but there was absolutely no one who could surpass him. However, Yan Quan, who had such a high movement technique, couldn't even receive a single finger from Yi Chen. I accept it wholeheartedly. Yan Quan landed on the ground and said sincerely. Good, who else doesn't accept it? Yi Chen scanned around with his eyes. I'm convinced. After the shock, Xing Melian revealed an enticing smile. This was the first time she had seen such an outstanding youngster. He was only 26 years old, and his future path was bound to be glorious. If she could establish a relationship with him, even if she didn't have a meteoric rise, she would at least be taken care of. Why did they join the Azure Dragon Hall? It was to earn contribution points and obtain more resources. If she relied on herself, she could indeed obtain resources, but it might not be a lot, and it might not be what she wanted. However, Dragon God Celestial Palace was a peak 5th grade sect with abundant resources that ordinary people couldn't imagine. Whether she could advance further or not, she could only do so. Moreover, even if she didn't think for herself, she had to think for her family. Within the vast territory of Dragon God Celestial Palace, there were thousands of families, and their family was one of them. Damn it! How can this guy be so powerful? Yao Yifeng tightly clenched his fists. For the first time, he felt that the situation was out of his control. Slowly loosening his fists, an obscure cold light flickered in his eyes. Since that's the case, don't blame me. Deputy who will accompany you down there. Since no one speaks, it means there's no problem. However, I'll say the ugly words first. My orders must be obeyed by everyone. If you don't blame me for not giving you any face. Yi Chen's brows rose. His entire aura was like an unsheathed sword. The aura of destruction made everyone feel as if the end of the world had arrived. 10,000 swords pierced their bodies, making them feel numb. His strength is far more than this. Xing Meilian held her breath. She realized that she had still underestimated Yi Chen. All right, who's willing to take me to understand the surrounding situation? Retracting his aura, Yi Chen asked. Xing Meilian hesitated. Me. Yi Chen nodded his head, everyone else dismissed. He continued to apologize to everyone. Seeing the scolding in the comments section, Taishu also knew that he was in the wrong. He would like to say that the typhoon blew for 2 days, the electricity was cut off for 1 day, and the internet was cut off for 2.5 days. Originally, he was ready to erupt, but in the end it was messed up, causing his passion to slowly fade away. He was depressed and in a bad state of mind. Hence, 2 days after the typhoon, he stopped updating. Taishu dared to say that none of the reasons he gave in the past were fake. Without a reason, Taishu would irresponsibly stop updating. This was what Taishu felt guilty about. Everyone can scold Taishu for updating rubbish, but please don't scold liars. Because Taishu had never done that before. No matter what, if you did something wrong, you have to bear the consequences. Hence, Taishu would like to apologize to everyone. Also, because he had previously released a single chapter, Taishu could not avoid breaking the chapters. However, Taishu would try his best to write more when he could, so that the total word count wouldn't be too low after a month. Taishu had said that he would make up for the missing chapters. Today, he was starting to feel that way. With 2 chapters per day, there should be 60 chapters per month. From this month onwards, Taishu will strive to update 55 chapters per month. No one would treat a typhoon as a joke, so please don't think that Taishu was joking. This was a joke that Taishu could not afford to make. Finally, I would like to thank all my brothers and sisters for their support and understanding. Taishu was indeed unreliable at times, but Taishu always wanted to write well and write more. But this book, how should I put it? There were too many ideas. Sometimes, just for a name, it would take half a day to think about it. In order to be unique, it would take a lot of brainpower. Of course, Taishu could understand the feelings of his brothers and sisters. Waiting for more chapters was not easy either. After saying so much nonsense, it was quite mentally taxing. Let's just leave it at that. I can't help but thank them again. I realize that I don't know how lucky I am. Chapter 677. Azure Dragon Hall was the first line of defense against the 4 hostile forces. Black Dragon Hall was 5 million li to the left, and Red Dragon Hall was 7 million li to the right. They could be considered the second line of defense. White Dragon Hall was in the middle of the 3 halls and Dragon God Celestial Palace, the last line of defense. Usually, it would provide support to the 3 halls. In front of Azure Dragon Hall, there were 3 scout islands every 100,000 li. These 3 islands were arranged in a fan shape, and were quite far from each other. Generally speaking, a scout island would have 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts overseeing it and 20 astral reaching experts. They didn't need to do anything other than patrolling twice a day. The rest of the time would be spent either cultivating or searching for nearby resources. After all, the ocean had always been rich in resources, some of which couldn't be found on the continent. Moreover, they would receive a bountiful amount of spirit stones and medicinal pellets every month. 100,000 li had 3 scout islands, and 300,000 li would make 9, all of which were located in the periphery of Blood Battle Ocean. Blood Battle Ocean was located at the border of Dragon God's Celestial Palace and the 4 hostile forces. From east to west, it was more than 23 million li, and from south to north, it was more than 4 million li. Blood Battle Ocean could be said to be the place with the richest resources in the eastern shallow ocean. There were thousands of large islands, hundreds of thousands of medium islands, and innumerable small islands, comparable to the stars in the sky. Blood Battle Ocean has already discovered more than 3,000 spirit veins. 1,000 are under our Dragon God's Celestial Palace's control, while the other 2,000 have been divided among the 4 hostile forces. Xing Meilian led Yi Chen as they flew around the periphery of Blood Battle Ocean and introduced 1,000. Yi Chen inwardly clicked his tongue. He didn't think that all of them were low-grade spirit veins. There were surely mid-grade spirit veins, and even upper-grade ones. Xing Meilian saw Yi Chen's expression and explained, 1,000 sounds like a lot, but it's actually not much compared to the Dragon God's Celestial Palace. My Dragon God's Celestial Palace has a population of 1,200,000. Among them, 500,000 are at the Qi Condensation Realm, 350,000 are at the Condensing Reality Realm, 150,000 are at the Clasping Yuan Realm, 30,000 are at the Astral Reaching Realm, and 2,000 are at the Sea of Soul Realm. Once a warrior reached the Condensing Reality Realm, he would need soul stones to train. Even if one person needed 100 low-rank soul stones a year, just the Condensing Reality Realm warriors would need 35 million low-rank soul stones. Adding the Clasping Yuan Realm warriors, it would need at least 300 million, maybe even 500 million. At the Astral Reaching Realm, one would need mid-grade spirit stones for cultivation, and the consumption would be more than 10 million. In fact, mid-grade spirit stones were the most insufficient, because at this level, one would have to pay them a salary, ranging from 100 per month to a few thousand per month. Adding it all up, it would be more than 1 or 200 million. If they already have so many in 1 year, then after 10 years, the amount of spirit stones consumed would be terrifying. Furthermore, it's impossible for a sect to not have a large reserve of spirit stones. Generally speaking, it's normal for a sect to have 50 years' worth of spirit stones, especially for a 5th-grade sect. Yi Chen faintly nodded. He already had a good understanding of Dragon God's Celestial Palace. The difference between a 5th-grade sect and a 6th-grade sect was like the difference between Life and Death Realm and Sea of Soul Realm. Although it seemed like a difference of 1 grade, it was actually like the difference between heaven and earth. On the other hand, the difference between a 6th-grade sect and a lower-grade sect was like the difference between Sea of Soul Realm and Astral Reaching Realm. Take Yi family for example. Because of Yi Chen, many people had joined Yi family. At present, Yi family had 5,000 Qi Realm disciples, 2,000 Condensing Reality Realm disciples, several hundred Clasping Yuan Realm disciples, and only a few Astral Reaching Realm disciples. It was simply incomparable to a 5th-grade sect, and the amount of spirit stones consumed was also incomparable. It was like a drop in the ocean. Although having a big family business was glorious, its burden was also huge. It was easy for problems to arise, and the biggest problem was the problem of resources. As one of the top 5th-grade sects, the burden of Dragon God's Celestial Palace was needless to say. Xing Meilian continued, in the past, among these 3,000 spirit veins, my Dragon God's Celestial Palace occupied 1,200. But in the past few years, 200 veins have been seized by the 4 hostile forces. The 2 passed by many islands on the way. On these islands, one could often see the mining workers of Dragon God's Celestial Palace. Dragon God Celestial Palace and the 4 hostile forces had an agreement that the mining workers on the islands were not to be harmed. They were only mining resources, and it wouldn't affect either side. In the distance, the two saw a huge island. It was extremely barren, with strange rocks everywhere. The surface of the rocks had a faint metallic luster. Xing Melian said, "This island is rich in black-veined iron, which can be smelted into black-veined iron. It's one of the best metals for forging top-notch weapons, and 1,000 gene of black-veined iron can be refined into 1 gene of black-veined iron. Black-veined iron is a kind of material for forging low-grade artifacts. It's extremely precious. My Dragon God Celestial Palace has artifact forgers who forge a large number of artifacts for the palace every year. A portion is left in the palace, and the rest is sold for spirit stones. This is also one of the income of a 5th-grade sect." Artifact forgers? This was the first time Yi Chen had heard of this title. Xing Melian brushed the hair on her forehead and said with a smile, "In ancient times there were many ways to forge artifacts, but now most of them have been lost. Only a small portion of 5th-grade sects have them, and my Dragon God Celestial Palace is one of them. Otherwise, how could there be so many artifacts in the continent and the 4 shallow oceans? You should know that artifacts also have their own durability. Artifacts from too long ago simply can't be passed down." "You're right." Yi Chen's knowledge had been broadened. Selling artifacts can be said to be one of the biggest sources of income, second only to mining spirit veins. Therefore, the value of some rare metals is not below spirit stones. Some metals that can be used to forge upper-grade artifacts are even more valuable than upper-grade spirit stones of the same weight. Look, this island is rich in scarlet fire iron ores. Scarlet fire iron is even more valuable than black-veined iron. The refined scarlet fire iron contains fire-attributed energy, which can increase the offensive and fire attack of artifacts. Unfortunately, only 10,000 gene of scarlet fire iron can be refined into 1 gene of scarlet fire iron. In the past, Yi Chen only knew that the most important resources were spirit stones, pellets, or herbs. But now, he knew that apart from spirit stones and pellets, rare metals were also precious resources. Perhaps ordinary sects wouldn't be able to use them, but they could be sold to 5th-grade sections. Apart from rare metals, gems were also a kind of resource. Some gems contained powerful energy and could be used as spirit stones, or embedded in artifacts to increase offensive or defensive power. In short, there were all kinds of resources. The higher the grade of a sect, the more resources they required, and the more complex they were. Up ahead is the edge of the Blood Battle Ocean's core region. We might run into a large number of hostile forces. It's best not to go too deep. After traveling for 200,000 li, Xing Melian looked around and said to Yi Chen with a hesitant expression, "It's all right. You continue to take me around. I don't know much about the Blood Battle Ocean situation and the resources occupied by Dragon God's Celestial Palace. It's necessary to clarify. As the deputy of Azure Dragon Hall, if he didn't know the resources occupied by Dragon God's Celestial Palace, he wouldn't be qualified. As for encountering hostile forces, even if he couldn't win, he could easily escape. Moreover, without a certain number of people, it was hard to say who would kill who." This? Xing Melian regretted inwardly. Had she known earlier that Yi Chen was so curious, she wouldn't have volunteered. It should be known that the Blood Battle Ocean was different from other places. Either they didn't run into any enemies, or if they did, it would be in groups of at least dozens. Moreover, there were only 2 of them. Once they were surrounded, they wouldn't be able to escape. When the earth-shattering attacks arrived, they would be blasted into pieces in an instant. If I say it's all right, then it's all right. Don't worry. He had encountered several grave dangers, such as being chased by the 5 great experts in the Blood Demon battlefield, narrowly escaping with his life, and being chased by countless vicious beasts in the Bewilderment Fog Forbidden Zone. In comparison, as long as it wasn't a full-scale war, a small-scale war couldn't be considered dangerous. Alright then. Let's agree, if anything goes wrong, we'll immediately retreat. Xing Melian said helplessly. Yi Chen chuckled. I value my life more than you do. That's true. Otherwise, you wouldn't have lived until now. Xing Melian herself could be considered a genius. Geniuses seem to have a dazzling halo, but the dangers geniuses encountered were not something ordinary people could imagine. Since they were geniuses, they had to think of every possible way to increase their strength. They couldn't just muddle through. Thus, some dangerous ruins couldn't lack the shadows of geniuses. In short, talent was important, opportunity was important, and tempering was equally important. Ahead is the Black Smoke Island, where all kinds of gems are dug up. Among them, the most famous are the Black Smoke Gem, Double Star Gem, and Fish Scale Gem. Because of this island, my dragon god Celestial Palace and the four great forces have engaged in dozens of battles in the past 2 years. Each time, many people died. Fortunately, this island is still under our control. Xing Melian didn't dare to relax too much. She released her soul power from time to time, scanning the surroundings. 500 to 600 li away, on an island, a group of experts with black octopus embroidered on their robes were entrenched here. With a rough glance, there were no less than 30 of them, 6 of them at Sea of Soul Realm, and 24 at Astral Reaching Realm. Head attendant. Suddenly, a figure flew toward the island. With a few flickers, he appeared at the center of the island. His face was filled with excitement, as if he had some good news. What's the matter? The fierce-looking man, who was resting, raised his head. Head attendant, there are 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts of Dragon God's Celestial Palace near the island. One is a beautiful woman, and the other is a young man. The newcomer promptly said. Beautiful woman. The fierce-looking man grinned, revealing an ugly smile. He was the head attendant of Black King Gate. He had 2 hobbies, killing and beauties. Among beauties, the one he liked the most was the charming woman. This kind of woman was the most enjoyable to play with, not to mention a lone Sea of Soul Realm expert. Did you send a spirit beast to track them? The fierce-looking man asked. Of course. The spirit beast of Black King Gate was a black octopus. In fact, the sect leader was a black octopus that had cultivated into a beast king. Therefore, black octopuses were spirit beasts of Black King Gate. Once a black octopus advanced to Sea of Soul Realm, its status would be even higher than a human of the same realm. Let's go. It's been a long time since I've killed someone. The fierce-looking man suddenly stood up, overflowing with killing intent. Haha, 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts? Won't it be a piece of cake? We have 6 on our side. The others were also excited. Sea of Soul Realm experts were not cabbages. Killing one would be one less. When they returned to the sect, they would be rewarded handsomely. Chapter 678. The Black Smoke Gem was a kind of translucent gem that emitted black chi. The Double Star Gem had 2 energy cores, and was the one with the most abundant energy. As for the Fish Scale Gem, it was just like its name, somewhat similar to a fish scale. This kind of gem could increase the defensive power of defensive armors. Unfortunately, the majority of the gems produced on this island were low-grade gems, with few mid-grade gems and almost no upper-grade gems. Even so, the Dragon God's Celestial Palace and the 4 enemy forces still attached great importance to this place. After all, only with a large amount of gems could they forge even better artifacts, which could greatly increase the disciples' survivability. The higher the survivability, the higher the chances of breaking through to the next realm. This was a virtuous cycle. On the island, Yi Chen gently smashed a huge boulder. Amidst the smoke and dust, a gem emitting black chi fell down, sparkling brightly. Reaching out his hand, the gem landed on his hand. It was a bit prickly to the touch, not as smooth as its surface. Hee, your luck is not bad, being able to obtain a mid-grade black smoke gem so casually. Xing Meiyan tenderly laughed. Her plump waist and perfectly round buttocks twisted, looking exceptionally alluring. Yi Chen faintly smiled, but his brows suddenly creased. What's wrong? Xing Meiyan observed his expression and asked. Someone's coming. Don't tell me it's the enemy forces? Xing Meiyan's complexion changed. She tried her best to release her soul power, but the incoming people were too far away. More than 100 li, she couldn't detect them. Her Zhen Yuan suddenly circulated to the limit as she said to Yi Chen in a fluster, still 100 li away, let's go quickly. Yi Chen shook his head and said, no rush, they don't have many people. You're not lying to me? For some reason, Xing Meiyan felt that his so-called, not much and her own, not much, were vastly different. Even if I'm lying to you, we can't get rid of them. Yi Chen looked indifferent. Hearing these words, Xing Meiyan operated her Zhen Yuan and sharpened her eyesight to the limit. In her line of sight there were 10 enemies in each of the 3 directions. Among the 10, there were 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts. The lowest cultivation base was Mid-Sea of Soul Realm, while the highest was Peak Late Sea of Soul Realm. These people were only 100 li away from them, and would arrive in 10 breaths' time. Moreover, their clothes were embroidered with black octopus patterns. It's the Black King Gate. Xing Meiyan's face was pale. The Black King sect was a mixed sect of black octopuses and humans. With the human experts of the Black King sect, there would basically be 9th grade or even 10th grade black octopuses. These black octopuses were not ordinary ones, but the royal race of black octopuses. They were commonly known as Black Kings, and the Black King sect was named after the royal race of black octopuses. 6 Sea of Soul Realm experts, 24 astral reaching experts, and an unknown number of 9th grade and 10th grade black octopuses. This was a very powerful force. The most infuriating thing was that Yi Chen didn't seem to care at all. They must have used the black octopuses as informants to figure out our whereabouts. Then, they circled behind us, making it impossible for us to escape according to our original path. If we flee forward, we'll only go deeper and deeper into the core of Blood Battle Ocean, and it'll be easier for us to encounter more enemies. Xing Meiyan looked at Yi Chen, wanting to hear his opinion. After all, the only person she could rely on was Yi Chen. Yi Chen said, how many contribution points would we get from killing 6 Sea of Soul Realm experts? This. Xing Meiyan didn't know what Yi Chen was thinking, so she replied, killing an astral reaching expert is 50 contribution points, Sea of Soul Realm expert is 1,000, Sea of Soul Realm expert is 3,000, and head attendant is 5,000. If my guess is correct, among these 6 Sea of Soul Realm experts, there's 1 head attendant, 2 battle attendants, and 3 ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts. Altogether, it's 14,000 contribution points, which can be exchanged for a peak upper grade offensive artifact and a defensive artifact. Of course, it can also be exchanged for other things. You're not thinking of killing them, are you? Xing Meiyan reacted and looked at Yi Chen in astonishment. How are we going to split it between 2 people? Yi Chen asked again. Xing Meiyan couldn't tell if Yi Chen was arrogant or just full of confidence. She said resentfully, Dragon God Celestial Palace has a clear distribution. If the enemies are killed by everyone, the deputy's share is twice that of head attendant, and 4 times that of battle attendants. In other words, you get 80% and I get 20%. 20% is also not a small amount. Yi Chen didn't explain much. His right hand reached toward his waist and grasped the Thunder Disaster sword's hilt. Clang! The Thunder Disaster sword was unsheathed, and like a deep blue lightning, it expanded and contracted indefinitely. The instant he unsheathed the sword, the nearest enemies were already less than 30 li away from them. Haha, you can't escape. One of the bald men laughed heartily. He wasn't in a hurry to attack, and his eyes revealed the expression of a cat toying with a mouse. The ones who can't escape are you. Holding the Thunder Disaster sword in his right hand, Yi Chen casually waved it. All of a sudden, the sky in front of him darkened, and a black crescent sword chi swallowed the bald man and the 11 people behind him like a crack in the darkness that could devour all light, carrying an endless destruction intent. Puff! There was no blood splashing. These 12 people didn't even make a sound before directly disintegrating into ashes, leaving behind only a few upper-grade artifacts and 12 storage rings. As for the mid-grade artifacts held by the astral-reaching experts, they were all disintegrated just like their owners. One sword strike killed 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts and 8 astral-reaching experts. What? Xing Meilian's face turned pale with fright. Before this, she already knew that Yi Chen's strength was extremely high, and could instantly kill the majority of Sea of Soul Realm masters. However, killing 1 and killing 12 were 2 completely different concepts. Moreover, it was 30 li away. Xing Meilian was astonished, but the remaining 20 people of the Black King sect were even more astonished. That bald man was a battle attendant of the Black King sect. From 30 li away, even some famous Sea of Soul Master Realm experts couldn't kill him in a second, let alone 10. Not good. Everyone, gather together and attack together. The fierce-looking man's face turned grave as he shouted. Shwa 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 shwa. Streams of light flickered as the remaining 2 groups converged. Below, 2 huge black octopuses shot up, their demonic power covering the sky and covering the sun. They were countless times more powerful than Sea of Soul Realm experts of the same level. Merely in terms of the energy they contained, even 10-peak Sea of Soul Realm experts might not be able to compare to a 10th-grade black octopus. 4 Sea of Soul Realm experts, 2 10th-grade black octopuses, and 16 astral-reaching experts. If they joined hands, it would be enough to kill the majority of Sea of Soul Realm masters. Even the top 5 young tycoons would have to temporarily avoid them. After all, that fierce-looking man was a great attendant, and the demonic power of the 2 10th-grade black octopuses was even more frightening. When they joined hands, their might could be easily imagined. However, Yi Chen didn't stop them from converging. Instead, he waited for them. We can't let them join hands. Xing Meilian wasn't as calm as Yi Chen. She waved her hand, and her unique weapon, the cold moon hook, shot out numerous arcs of light toward the opponents. She wanted to disrupt their formation and prevent them from joining hands. Pung 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 pung. Unfortunately, Xing Meilian was a step too late. Before the arcs of light could approach the opponents, they were blocked by an invisible energy wall. This was a Zhen Yuan barrier jointly activated by the opponent. As soon as the arcs of light slashed down, ripples spread out and the power dispersed. It didn't even have the qualifications to shake the Zhen Yuan barrier. Attack! The fierce-looking man waved his hand, and the 20 people and the 2 black octopuses launched a fierce attack at Yi Chen and Xing Meilian. In the blink of an eye, the wind and clouds changed color and waves surged. Yi Chen didn't retreat and once again slashed out. This slash contained the destruction sword intent. Not only was its attack powerful, it was also exceptionally condensed and had a devouring effect. Puff puff. The opponent's first round of attacks exploded midway. Too powerful. Xing Meilian admitted that she had no idea what level Yi Chen's strength had reached. Every time, she thought that this was the opponent's strongest battle power. However, reality told her that this was only an ordinary attack. No wonder he's so confident. Who is he? Xing Meilian was extremely curious about Yi Chen. She had never heard of such a frightening genius in the eastern shallow ocean. My turn. Raising the thunder disaster sword high up, black lightning gathered on the sword tip and gradually condensed into a black thunderball. After the destruction sword intent reached the 5th step, the color of the thunderball changed, becoming the same as the destruction sword spirit. Only Yi Chen knew that the nature of the thunder had changed, and it was now tainted with the destruction attribute. After all, the 5th step destruction sword intent was simply too powerful, and its power was equivalent to an ordinary 6th step sword intent. Full defense. The fierce-looking man had a bad premonition. The feeling that Yi Chen gave him was too dangerous. The Zhen Yuan barrier turned from incorporeal to tangible, and like a sky curtain, it hung down vertically, protecting the fiendish man's group and the two black octopuses. Gotcha! As Yi Chen's sword descended, the whole world turned black. There were no stars and no light. Only a black thunderball cut through the dark sky and heavily collided with the Zhen Yuan barrier. In the next moment, a black brilliance erupted, and a huge black hole was formed. Pop! The Zhen Yuan barrier vanished like smoke, and the thunderball exploded. Berserk black lightning surged out. The fiendish man and the others simply didn't have time to dodge, and could only passively endure the violent lightning strike. When the black lightning dissipated, the group completely disappeared. Only the upper-grade artifacts and storage rings remained intact, falling down. Of course, the defense of the two black octopuses was also exceedingly powerful. Although their vitality had dissipated, their bodies didn't disappear. They turned into two huge pieces of charcoal and fell into the seawater. Making a grabbing motion with his left hand, the slightly damaged upper-grade artifacts and storage rings flew toward Yi Chen. These people's storage rings had tokens representing their identity. Ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts had ordinary tokens, while battle attendants and head attendants had tokens. Only by obtaining these tokens would one be able to exchange them for contribution points. Chapter 679. On the side, Xing Meiyan looked at Yi Chen as if she was looking at a monster. 30 people and 2 10th-grade black octopuses were like chickens and dogs in front of Yi Chen. They didn't even have the qualifications to struggle. Meanwhile, Yi Chen had a carefree and relaxed expression from beginning to end. The calmer he was, the more Xing Meiyan felt that Yi Chen was frightening. Deputy Yi Chen's strength is no longer something I can guess. Could he have reached half-step king realm? Judging from his strength on the surface, he shouldn't have. But, who knows what else he's hiding? Xing Meiyan didn't know how powerful half-step kings were, just like how she didn't know how powerful Yi Chen was. However, in her eyes, Yi Chen was much more powerful than Sea of Soul Masters. Even if he wasn't as powerful as half-step kings, he wouldn't be too far off. With Yi Chen's strength being this powerful, Xing Meiyan finally relaxed. As long as the number of enemies wasn't too excessive, there wouldn't be any danger. However, the two didn't encounter a second wave of enemies. In the evening, the two returned. The days in Azure Dragon Hall were very ordinary. However, this kind of peacefulness was usually only temporary. Once a battle broke out, it would be a life-and-death situation. Therefore, no one rejected this kind of peacefulness. They would rather live a peaceful life for a long time, giving them enough time to increase their strength. On this day, an attendant arrived at Yi Chen's residence. It was Azure Dragon Hall leader Wei Longtao who had ordered him to come. He wanted him to go to the Azure Dragon Hall to discuss some important matters. Arriving at the Azure Dragon Hall, Yi Chen discovered that the other two deputy leaders had also arrived. Deputy Yi Chen, Wu Chuan and Su Danian greeted Yi Chen one after another. Yi Chen returned their greetings one by one. On the main seat, Wei Longtao saw Yi Chen's arrival and said, "All right, everyone. This time, I've called you here because I have a mission for you. However, this mission is rather big, and you won't be able to accomplish it alone. It will require the cooperation of 2 people. Therefore, you should discuss among yourselves who should go." Su Danian asked, "Leader, what is the mission this time?" 5 Gold Island, Number 2 Volcano Island, and Mysterious Spirit Island's resources are almost here. I need you to transport them back. Wei Longtao's voice was very calm, but it caused Wu Chuan and Su Danian to frown. These 3 islands were all rich in resources, producing a lot of resources. The 5 Gold Island mainly produced 5 kinds of rare metal ores. The number 2 Volcano Island produced a large amount of middle-grade flame cloud rock, and the Mysterious Spirit Island had 3 middle-grade spirit veins, 2 high-grade middle-grade spirit veins, and 1 peak-grade middle-grade spirit veins. It was easy to imagine how difficult the mission this time would be. After all, the more resources they transported, the more danger they would encounter. In these years, out of 10 times they had transported resources, at least 5 of them had encountered danger, and 3 of them had been surrounded and killed. How can I, Wu Chuan, Dragonkin Vice Hall Master Wu Chuan stood up and expressed his attitude. Su Danian let out a breath and said in a deep voice, Deputy Leader Hu Wenhai's death has already made me feel suffocated. It's best if I don't run into the 4 great factions. If I do, I'll teach them a lesson and kill them all. Therefore, I must go this time. The 2 of them indicated that they wanted to go, leaving only Yi Chen alone. Vice Palace Master Yi, this is your first time coming to the Azure Dragon Palace. You are not familiar with the situation here. I think you should not go this time. Give the opportunity to us, Wu Chuan said. Yi Chen said indifferently, I am here to help the Azure Dragon Palace salvage the situation. As for the Blood Battle Seas environment, I am more or less familiar with it. Vice Palace Master Wu, Vice Palace Master Su, you 2 should discuss who should go. After all, there are 2 slots this time. The 2 of them hadn't expected Yi Chen to reject them so bluntly. However, what he said was also reasonable. They hadn't come here to sightsee, or to satisfy the craving of a vice temple master. They had come here to do something. But to be honest, the 2 of them didn't think that Yi Chen would be of much use. They weren't underestimating Yi Chen's strength. In fact, the 2 of them didn't dare to underestimate Yi Chen at all. Unfortunately, the situation in the Blood Battle Sea was like this. Forget it, Deputy Palace Master Su, you go. Anyway, we still have a long way to go. Wu Chuan left on his own. Then many thanks. Su Danian cupped his fists. Seeing that the 3 had finished their discussion, Wei Longtao took out 2 palm-sized black bags from his storage ring. They were bulging and filled with things. With a flick of his wrist, the 2 bags landed in Yi Chen and Su Danian's hands respectively. Old rules, each person gets 10 mid-grade storage rings and 50 low-grade storage rings. Put all the resources inside. Each ring must be filled to the brim. Su Danian explained to Yi Chen, Deputy Yi, this is a resource storage ring. Once it's filled, the gems on it will light up. Moreover, there's a restriction on it. You can only put it in but not take it out. Yi Chen nodded. He knew that this was to prevent the treasures from disappearing. As for the amount of resources, they would definitely check the accounts after they returned. There wouldn't be any loopholes. Tomorrow morning, you guys set off. Remember, don't reveal the mission to anyone else. Otherwise, you will be punished according to the palace rules. Yes. The 3 turned around and left the Azure Dragon Palace. Late at night, the night was as cold as water. Inside a luxurious and spacious bedroom, a person with his back facing the light took out a snail-shaped metal artifact. He poured his Zhen Yuan inside, and the artifact faintly glowed. What's wrong? Another mission? A voice unexpectedly came from the artifact. Indeed. The voice was unfamiliar, as if it had been altered. Very well, say it. This time, I want 10 king-grade spirit energy stones. What? Are you crazy? You think a few hundred people and a batch of resources are worth 10 king-grade spirit energy stones? The owner of the artifact said indifferently, Dragon God Celestial Palace's head disciple, 5th disciple, 8th disciple, Dragon King's most favored genius, Yi Chen, along with 700 people's lives and a huge amount of resources. Do you think it's worth 10 king-grade spirit energy stones? The man was silent for a long time before he said, You should know that Challenger-level spiritual crystals can only be found in the remains of Challenger-level spiritual crystals. In this world, the number of Challenger-level spiritual crystals is not endless. How about 5 Challenger-level spiritual crystals and 50 top-class spiritual crystals? Alright, deal. The owner of the artifact revealed a faint smile as he told the details of the mission. On the second morning, the training ground was filled with people. Yi Chen and Su Danian arrived one after another. Seeing that Lin Songhai was also in the crowd, Yi Chen faintly nodded. If the latter did not come this time, he would let him know how high the sky was. Without saying anything, Yi Chen and Su Danian said directly, "Let's go." Shoo! Shoo! The two of them flew out first, turning into a beam of light that shot out. Then, more than 700 people followed closely behind them, densely packed together. Soon, the crowd disappeared into the horizon. On the boundless ocean, islands were scattered everywhere. The big ones would take a long time to fly past, and the small ones would be left behind in a blink of an eye. In front of the crowd of light, Su Danian and Yi Chen flew side by side. Leader Yi, the 5 Gold Island and the mysterious Spirit Island are the closest, only tens of thousands of miles away. The number 2 Volcano Island is hundreds of thousands of miles away. You and I will go to the 5 Gold Island and the mysterious Spirit Island first, then we will meet up and go to the number 2 Volcano Island. What do you think? Su Danian suggested. All right. Yi Chen agreed. Then I will go to the 5 Gold Island and you go to the mysterious Spirit Island. You should know the location, right? Half a month ago I had already found it out. That time, Xing Meiyan had taken him to a lot of resource islands. Therefore, he knew the locations of the 5 Gold Island, the mysterious Spirit Island, and the number 2 Volcano Island. He also knew about the surrounding ocean environment, as well as where the resources of the 4 enemy parties were located. We are almost there. Have a safe journey. The Azure Dragon Palace was right next to the Blood Battle Ocean. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was in the Blood Battle Ocean. Therefore, the 5 Gold Island and the mysterious Spirit Island were only 600,000 to 700,000 miles away from the Azure Dragon Palace. In 2 days, the crowd had almost reached their destination. If it were not for the large amount of astral-reaching realm warriors in the team, the time would be a couple of times shorter. After half an hour, the 700 people had been divided into 2 groups. One group was Su Danian's team, and the other was Yi Chen's team. The 2 groups flew in different directions, one on the left and the other on the right. There are still 2 hours to go. Everyone, hurry up! Yi Chen turned his head and said, "Hurry up!" Xing Meiyan was the one who trusted Yi Chen the most, so she was also yelling right then. Hearing her, everyone did not care about using up their Zhen Yuan anymore. They swallowed a dan to replenish Zhen Yuan and started to increase their speed. Soon, they arrived at the mysterious Spirit Island. There were thousands of mining workers on the island, and the Azure Dragon Palace also had a group of people stationed there. The Dragon God's Celestial Palace had an agreement with the 4 opposing forces. The resources and workers on the island were not allowed to be robbed or harmed. Therefore, they would only be attacked when they were transporting resources, since everyone had their own resources and mining workers. On the Blood Battle Ocean, it would be both sides who would suffer. If they did not control themselves, both sides would be injured, and there would be no benefits at all. The Dragon God's Celestial Palace originally had 1,200 spirit veins on the Blood Battle Ocean. The reason why 200 of them had been robbed was because they were surrounded by the 4 opposing forces, and the environment was not good. Therefore, the 4 opposing forces had directly taken over the island, but did not harm the people on the island. Instead, they had sent them directly to the island which belonged to the Dragon God's Celestial Palace. The Dragon God's Celestial Palace had also agreed to this. Since the environment was not good, it would be extremely dangerous to transport the resources. Otherwise, if they really wanted to fight, the Dragon God's Celestial Palace would most likely be at a disadvantage. There were 3 spirit veins on the mysterious Spirit Island, and there were a lot of resources there. All of them were piled up in a cave. Once people walked in, they could immediately feel the moist nature of the spirit chi. It was because the spirit chi was too dense and sticky. For people with insufficient cultivation, it would not be a good thing to train here, since they would be blown up by the spirit chi and break all of their meridians. Deputy Yi, the spirit stones are all here. The person in charge of the Dragon God's celestial palace said with respect. All right. Yi Chen nodded as he took out a mid-rank resource storage ring. With a wave of his hand, piles of spirit stones were put into the ring. Chapter 680. 3 mid-rank spirit veins, which was a couple of months' worth of mining, was a shocking number. Yi Chen spent a whole 15 minutes before he managed to put all of the spirit stones into his storage rings. So far, 2 mid-rank storage rings and 10 low-rank storage rings had been filled. Not all of the spirit stones from the mid-rank spirit veins were mid-rank spirit stones. In fact, the low-rank spirit stones were more than the mid-rank ones, taking up half of the total, while the mid-rank spirit stones took up 90% of the remaining half. The top-rank spirit stones were the least, but it was still quite impressive. This was the harvest from 2 top-rank mid-rank spirit veins and 1 top-rank mid-rank spirit vein. And these 3 spirit veins made up quite a lot of the 1,000 spirit veins. After all, out of the 1,000 spirit veins that the Dragon God's celestial palace had in the Blood Battle Ocean, 900 of them were all low-rank spirit veins. Dozens of low-rank spirit veins might not even be able to compete with 1 top-rank or top-rank mid-rank spirit vein. After collecting the spirit stones, Yi Chen did not waste any time and left the mysterious Spirit Island immediately, bringing his people and flying towards the 5 Gold Island. On the way, Yi Chen's eyebrows flicked as he slowed down his speed. Second Leader Yi, what's wrong? The middle-aged scholar Yin Quan asked. Yi Chen raised his arm and pointed to the right. Let's go this way. This way? Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Yao Yifeng's expression changed as he yelled, Second Leader Yi, what we need to do right now is to meet up with Second Leader Su as soon as possible. What are you doing? Yi Chen looked at Yao Yifeng with a sharp gaze. Am I the second leader, or are you the second leader? All you need to do is follow the orders. Yao Yifeng said with a bit of courage, right now, the Azure Dragon Palace is in danger. We cannot let you act on your own and put us in unnecessary danger. Please reconsider. Second Leader Yi, Attendant Yao is right. We should meet up with Second Leader Su right now. The longer we are separated, the more dangerous it will be. Deputy Palace Leader Yi, you have to give us a reason. There were too many people who didn't know what was going on. Some of them stood out to support Yao Yifeng. After all, compared to fighting against the Deputy Palace Master, their lives were more important. If they lost their lives, fighting against the Deputy Palace Master wouldn't make any difference. Besides, to be honest, they didn't really trust Yi Chen. Not everyone had leadership abilities. Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and stared at Yao Yifeng for a long time. After a while, he said, If we walk in a straight line, we will be ambushed. If we walk on the right front, we can catch them off guard. Is this reason enough? There will be an ambush. Everyone was shocked. Hearing him, a trace of panic flashed through Yao Yifeng's eyes as he forced a smile and said, Second Leader Yi, how do you know there will be an ambush? We are all at the Sea of Soul's realm, and our soul power is the same. But I didn't sense anything. Perhaps you are overthinking. Right then, even Xing Meilian was looking at Yi Chen strangely, because she also didn't sense anything strange. She had even checked whether there were any black octopuses under the sea. Moreover, if Yi Chen sensed an enemy, the enemy would definitely know as well. After all, everyone was at the Sea of Soul's realm, and they were very sensitive to soul power scanning. Yi Chen said lightly, You don't need to know this. Besides, this is the first time I am explaining to everyone, and also the last time. Next time, whoever dares to disobey will be punished according to the palace rules. Right now, everyone follow me. If you don't, you will be treated as a traitor. Changing his route, Yi Chen flew toward the right front. Xing Meilian, Chen Yusin, and the rest hesitated a bit before following him. Soon, most of the people followed, leaving only Yao Yifeng and a small group. Let's go. Yao Yifeng said in a low voice. Although he dared to voice out his opinion, he didn't dare to go against Yi Chen directly. He was sure that if he did, Yi Chen would definitely take him down. Although everyone was following behind Yi Chen, they were still communicating with each other. What the hell is Deputy Yi doing? Instead of gathering with Deputy Su, he said that there is an ambush ahead. I don't believe he can sense it. He is the deputy. We should just follow his orders. Perhaps he has his own concerns. Xing Meiyan spoke up for Yi Chen. Yeah, I also believe that senior brother Yi wouldn't do this for no reason. Chen Yusen chose to stand on Yi Chen's side. On the two sides of the original route, groups of people were lying in ambush. There were 6 of them in total. The entrance of the ambush was very wide, at least 1,000 miles wide. The closer it was to the center, the closer the distance between the two sides was. The whole ambush was like an X shape. Reaching the center of the X, one's soul power would be able to sense the people on both sides. Unfortunately, it would already be in the middle of the ambush. Once the enemies saw Yi Chen and the rest, they would send out a signal, and then they would definitely be surrounded. If Yi Chen chose the right front, he would be able to kill them. Although there were a lot of enemies, they were separated into 6 groups, which meant that their manpower was spread out by 6 times. As for how Yi Chen knew about it, it shouldn't be forgotten that Yi Chen's soul power was 5 times that of normal people. He could scan everything within 500 miles, and the quality was even higher than Sea of Souls realm warriors. His soul power was equivalent to a king warrior's soul power. He could sense others, but others would not be able to sense his soul power scanning. This was the advantage and usefulness of Yi Chen. On the island closest to Yi Chen and the rest, 200 people were hiding in a mountain. Their clothes had a swirl pattern on them. They were the warriors of the Water Wave School. This time, our school has sent out 600 warriors, and the Sky Eagle cult has sent out 700 warriors. Altogether, it would be 1,300 warriors. Killing 300 of them would be too easy. The Black King Gate and Whirlwind Gate would definitely be able to kill the other 300 as well. Haha, killing 700 warriors at once. The Azure Dragon Hall has lost almost half of its power. Including the last time, the Azure Dragon Hall has already lost 1,000 warriors in a couple of months. They must be in a panic right now. They can only blame themselves for being careless and not being able to gain the upper hand every time. Yeah, I have to say that the average battling power of the Azure Dragon Hall is a lot higher than ours. If we were to fight with the same number of people, we would be at a disadvantage. Haha, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's drink and kill the enemies later. Cheers. Inside the mountain, the aroma of wine filled the air. 100 miles away from the island, Yi Chen stopped. Turning his head, Yi Chen said with a cold voice, "Wait for my order. Once I give the order, everyone will increase their speed. Sea of Souls realm warriors, start attacking the biggest mountain on the island from 30 miles away. Attack while moving forward at full speed. Astral reaching realm warriors, just follow behind us and wait for my order." 100 miles distance would be covered in 7 to 8 breaths for normal Sea of Souls realm warriors, and 20 to 30 breaths for astral reaching realm warriors. As for Yi Chen, it would only take him 2 to 3 breaths. If he used his defensive sword spell, it would be even faster. However, the effect would not be that great by himself, so he would need the other Sea of Souls realm warriors to attack together. As for astral reaching realm warriors, it would be useless, since their speed would be too slow. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen yelled, "Full speed!" Shoo! Yi Chen flew out first. "Let's go!" Including Lin Songhai, Chen Yusen, and Luo Yunsong, 43 Sea of Souls realm warriors followed closely behind. The 300 astral reaching realm warriors were a lot slower, and had been left far behind. 100 miles, 80 miles, 60 miles, 50 miles. Inside the mountain on the island, a Sea of Souls realm warrior subconsciously released his soul power, and then took it back immediately. HM? He frowned and released his soul power again. All of a sudden, his expression changed. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Get out of the mountain now! Without waiting for him to finish speaking, a huge black thunder ball exploded on the mountain peak. Then, sword chi, saber chi, palm energy, fist energy, true essence, crescent moonlight, claw shadows, all of them bombarded the mountain peak. For a moment, time seemed to stand still above the island, and the air was as thick as water. Rumble! The black thunderball released by Yi Chen was the first to show its effect. The aggressive black lightning shot everywhere like countless black flood dragons playing in the sky. The sky changed color. The sword chi and blade chi cut everything in front of them open, while the palm power and fist power shattered the whole place. Ah! Screams were heard one after another. No one knew how many people had died in this sudden attack. Even the powerful Sea of Souls realm warriors were not spared. This! Xing Meiyan and the rest were stupefied. They had followed Yi Chen's orders to not release their soul power. Whoever dared to release their soul power would be killed without mercy. Therefore, only when the mountain was shattered and the people inside turned into ashes did they realize that there were enemies here. How did he know? This was what everyone wanted to know. Don't let a single one go. Yi Chen's expression was cold. He knew that if he let one go, he wouldn't be able to continue killing the enemy forces. The four forces had killed so many people of Dragon God's celestial palace. This time, it was time for them to suffer a heavy blow. Moreover, it would be an extremely painful one. Attack! Xing Meiyan admired Yi Chen from the bottom of her heart. She had already made up her mind. In the future, whatever Yi Chen said, she would do. Among everyone, Lin Songhai was the most hard-working. He had previously said that he would compete with Yi Chen in terms of number of kills, and now, it had already begun. As a master-level sword artist who was no weaker than the second master of the Elder Union, Lin Songhai alone was more than enough to fight against a lot of people. That dense sword chi covered over, and a huge area in the center of the island was under the attack of his sword chi. Unfortunately, Yi Chen's one thunderball had killed too many people. No matter how one looked at it, he was still a little bit lacking. The whole island was thrown into chaos. There were less than 10 people left, all of whom were head attendants and battle attendants. As for the other Sea of Soul realm experts and astral reaching experts, they were all dead, not a single one left alive. Run! These 7 or 8 enemies scattered, running for their lives. Swish! A black sword chi slashed out, devouring 2 enemies not far away. This was an attack launched by Yi Chen. Although the others were running, there were too many attacks. Being caught in the fierce firepower net, how could they escape? One after another, they were shattered into pieces. At this point, the first surprise attack was a complete success. Yi Chen and 40 people had killed more than 200 enemies, and the astral reaching experts had yet to catch up. They could only be useful in a frontal battle. Chapter 681. Right then, no one dared to doubt Yi Chen anymore. If it were not for Yi Chen, they would not be able to kill these 200 enemies in such a short period of time. Plus, if they followed the original route, they would most likely fall into the ambush circle and suffer a devastating attack. I am starting to believe that he can turn the situation around for the Azure Dragon Palace. Xing Meiyan took a deep breath and mumbled to herself. Head disciple is probably going to lose this time. Chen Yusen looked at Lin Songhai, then at Yi Chen. Just then, Yi Chen had killed dozens of people with his first sword attack, and Lin Songhai was obviously weaker than Yi Chen. Plus, Yi Chen did not seem to be serious at all. After throwing out the first sword attack, the rest of the attacks were all on the outside, preventing the enemies from escaping. In the crowd, a cold light flashed through Yao Yifeng's eyes, but he hid it well. Unfortunately, he could not hide it from Yi Chen. When Yi Chen forcefully chose to move forward, he knew that there would be a conflict. He was happy to see this kind of situation, since only this kind of situation could bring out the current result. The bigger the contrast, the more effective it would be. In other words, if things went according to the normal way, Yi Chen's reputation would not be as high as it was right now. But now, everyone was starting to trust him blindly. Next, Yi Chen brought 300 people and flew toward the top right corner of the X-shaped ambush circle. As for the middle corner, it was too close to the enemies on the other side of the original route, and it would be easy to alert them. Therefore, the 4 corners of the X-shaped ambush circle were the best targets for a surprise attack. This time, the enemies were still the Water Wave Martial School's people. There were less than 200 of them, about 180 people. Among them, there were 20 Sea of Souls Realm Warriors and 160 Astral Reaching Realm Warriors. If they fought head-on, although Yi Chen's 300 people could kill them all, there would still be some casualties. They were completely caught off guard. Since they were at the back of the ambush circle, this batch of enemies was even worse than the first batch. They did not even know that Yi Chen and the rest had gotten within 30 miles of them. In the first round of attacks, more than half of them were wiped out. After the second round of attacks, only a dozen or so of varying sizes were left. In the third round of attacks, all of them were wiped out. This is great. I've never felt so good before. Deputy Leader Yi is simply a god. Only he could allow us to annihilate our enemies without suffering any injuries. Now, if anyone dares to speak ill of Deputy Leader Yi, I, Lu Biao, will be the first to fall out with him. An Azure Dragon Hall Combat Deacon's face flushed red. That was a sign of excitement. In the past 1 or 2 years, the Azure Dragon Hall had lost many people to the 4 enemy forces. One of them was Lu Biao's sworn brother. He swore that he would kill 10 enemies to avenge his sworn brother, and now he was about to do it. With Vice Palace Master Yi here, our Azure Dragon Hall can finally hold our heads high. So what if the 4 enemy factions have the advantage in numbers? Kill them all. Yao Yifeng, you seem unhappy. Could it be that you have a grudge with Vice Palace Master Yi? Someone noticed that Yao Yifeng did not have any expression on his face, which was very abnormal. Now, apart from Yi Chen, everyone was very happy. Yao Yifeng forced a smile. How could that be? I also admire Vice Palace Master Yi a lot. I was a little rash before actually suspecting him. So you're worried about this matter. I believe that Vice Palace Master Yi will not hold a grudge. Someone patted Yao Yifeng's shoulder and smiled. That's for the best. The corner of Yao Yifeng's mouth twitched. Without looking at Yao Yifeng, Yi Chen gave the order, left, advance. That was the other side of the original route. Just like that, Yi Chen's 300 men annihilated 4 groups of people. The first 2 groups were from Water School, while the last 2 were from the Sky Eagle cult. It took a lot of effort to annihilate the Sky Eagle cult. The Sky Eagle cult was the same as the Imperial Beast School, famous for raising demonic beasts. However, the demonic beasts they raised were all eagle-type demonic beasts. Yi Chen's group rushed forward and killed many eagle-type demonic beasts. Finally, they killed their nest and annihilated them in one fell swoop. Fortunately, things went smoothly. Out of the 6 groups of people, 4 had died, leaving only the last 2 groups. The last 2 groups of people were not easy to deal with because they were in the middle of the X-shaped ambush circle and were relatively close to each other. Killing people on one side would attract the attention of the other side. The only way was to end the battle quickly and cut through the Gordian knot. Something is not right. Under the deserted island, the skinny man frowned and thought carefully. What's not right? Someone beside him asked. I can't think of anything wrong, but I have a bad feeling. Do you think we will fail this time? Don't joke around. How could we fail? Even if we fail, we have more than 1,300 people with the Water School's people added up. What's there to be afraid of? That's true. Maybe I am worrying too much. The skinny man smiled and relaxed a lot. However, the bad feeling in his heart had not dissipated yet, which made him a little confused. Boom. The ocean water hit the rocks on the edge of the island, creating a series of explosive sounds. In the sky, the clouds were connected together, extending all the way to the horizon. Amidst the noise of the waves hitting the shore, human figures suddenly appeared at the end of the horizon. More and more of them appeared, and it looked like a stain on a painting of blue sky and white clouds. The number of enemies here is close to 300, and there is another group of enemies 80 li away from here. Everyone, you must use all of your killing moves. Otherwise, when the other group of enemies arrives, some of you will die. Yi Chen said with a low voice. Don't worry, Deputy Leader Yi. We will do our best. Brothers, if you don't want to die, then use all of your strength. Everyone was full of confidence. If Yi Chen told them to go east, then they would definitely not go west. Whoever dared to go west would be going against everyone. Alright, let's go. Yi Chen took out his Thunder Disaster sword and pointed it forward. Shoo! 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 An air-piercing sound could be heard continuously. With Yi Chen as the arrowhead, the 300 people rushed toward the island with all of their strength. Underneath the island, the bad feeling in the skinny man's heart was getting stronger and stronger. He kept walking back and forth, releasing his soul power from time to time, hoping to sense something. Unfortunately, there was nothing. Could it be that I am thinking too much? The skinny man started to doubt himself. Every time he encountered danger, he would be alerted. But in the past, it would come true very quickly. But this time, it had been quite a while, and there was not even a single clue. Having a clue was not scary, but having no clue would be scary. It was like the calm before the storm. Once again, he released his soul power. Fuck! Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The skinny man's face turned pale. His premonition had finally come true, but he would rather not. More than 50 miles away, more than 40 silhouettes were flying over at an astonishing speed. The person in the front had already raised his lightning-like sword, ready to attack. Deputy Zhao, you are not joking, right? The person who had told the skinny man to be at ease earlier said subconsciously. Joke your mother. The skinny man jumped out of the ground. Crack! The second he jumped out of the ground, a black thunder ball approached from afar, landing in the middle of the island at a seemingly slow speed. All of a sudden, the center of the island caved in. Then, the thunder ball exploded and countless black lightning bolts spread out like black demonic dragons. Even with the skinny man's warning, no one could react in time. It was not their fault, since Yi Chen's attack had arrived almost within a second. Even if they could react in time, what could they do? No matter how fast their body arts were, how could they be faster than an attack? This thunderball had directly killed 5 to 6 Sea of Souls realm warriors and 60 astral reaching realm warriors. Besides that, this thunderball had also made the rest of the people panic. There was no way for them to work together, so they could only run for their lives to avoid the center of the explosion. Sword chi, blade chi, palm power, fist power, Zhen Yuan flow. After the thunderball, more than 40 attacks landed on the center of the island one after another. The whole island started to shake violently before being torn apart. A huge amount of seawater poured out through the cracks, giving people a strong illusion that it was the end of the world, and there was nowhere to run. Not good. They are being attacked. While the people of the Sky Eagle cult were being attacked, the last batch of water wave sex people sensed the situation over there. The leader of this group said suspiciously, "Why are they being attacked?" He thought that Yi Chen and the rest had already entered the ambush. However, the result was unexpected. Don't worry about it. Go and help them. Shoo! 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 A huge amount of experts flew into the sky, flying toward the 80 li area. Take care of them as soon as possible. Yi Chen sensed the arrival of the last batch of water wave sex people. Kill! Kill! The experts of the Azure Dragon Hall had blood-red eyes. They had an aura of killing anyone who stood in their way. They had never felt so carefree before. The people of the Sky Eagle cult were getting fewer and fewer. From 200 to 100 it was a miserable scene. You have already entered the ambush. Just wait for your death. The remaining people of the Sky Eagle cult said fiercely. Hearing them, people on Yi Chen's side almost laughed out loud. They thought to themselves, "You are already the last batch, and you still think that we have entered the ambush?" However, thinking back, they couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Without Yi Chen, they would indeed have entered the ambush, and the ending would have been completely different. Unknowingly, they trusted Yi Chen even more, almost to the point of blindness. Bastards of the Azure Dragon Hall, your good luck ends here. More than 300 people from Water Wave sect rushed over, gathering with the remaining dozens of people from the Sky Eagle cult. Their total number was close to 400, which was a lot more than the 300 people of Yi Chen. Who will end here is still not certain. Xing Melian said loudly. Haha, little bitch, I will let you have a good time after I catch you. The leader of Water Wave sect laughed. TSK. Still thinking about sex even at death's door. Xing Melian's face was full of disdain as she stared at them as if they were dead people. Get in. Yi Chen did not say anything and directly took out the golden dragon chariot. The huge chariot floated in the sky, overflowing with golden light. Shoo! Shoo! The dozens of people who were called before jumped onto the chariot, which was controlled by a normal Sea of Souls realm warrior. The chariot roared as it rushed toward the enemy's camp. Those who did not get on the chariot followed closely behind, using it as the tip of a spear. Chariot? The leader of the Water Wave sect frowned. Chariot weapons were very precious, and he was only a deputy leader of a sect, so he did not have the right to own one. So what if you have a chariot? Our people will only increase. The leader of the Water Wave sect was not afraid at all. Rumble. As the distance between the two sides got closer, a head-on battle could happen at any moment. This time, it was different from the surprise attack. It would be relying on real power, where the strong would survive, and the weak would be eliminated. However, with Yi Chen here, the outcome of the enemies had already been decided. Up until now, Yi Chen had not even used half of his power, and he still had a super ace like the defensive sword spell. Chapter 682. Kill. 30 miles was the best attacking distance. If it was a bit further, the attacking power would be greatly reduced, and if it was a bit closer, the opponent would have the upper hand. Standing at the front of the battle chariot, Yi Chen lifted up his Thunder Disaster sword and threw out a sword attack. Swoosh! The sky seemed to have been torn apart as the black thunder ball shot out in a straight line. The other's attacks followed right after. All of a sudden, the whole sky was filled with strange phenomena. 40 Sea of Souls realm warriors and 300 astral-reaching realm warriors had combined their attacks, which were extremely horrifying. Even half-step king warriors would have to back out, not daring to take it head-on. Anyone below the half-step king warrior level would die upon touching it. Kill them all! The leader of the Water Wave Martial School waved his hand and yelled. In fact, even without the order, when Yi Chen and the rest were 30 miles away from them, they had already finished preparing their power and threw out their most powerful attack. Fighting head-on would be extremely brutal, as individual power would be greatly reduced. Only by working together would they be able to fight back. Boom, 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 boom. On one side there were 300 attacks, while on the other side there were almost 400 attacks. They clashed together at an extremely fast speed, causing a heart-shattering explosion sound to be heard continuously. The chaotic blast waves spread out in circles, turning the center into a death zone. Pep, pep. Not all of the attacks from the two sides collided with each other, and there were always some that slipped through the net. About 30 attacks passed through the chaotic chi flow and bombarded on the protective cover of the golden dragon chariot, stirring up waves of ripples and shaking the entire chariot. However, in the end, the defensive layer of the battle chariot was not broken. The defense of the battle chariot was even more powerful than a single semi-extreme rank armor. Although there were a lot of attacks, they were all exhausted so naturally they could not break through. On the other side, there were 40 attacks from the water wave martial school that went through the chaotic chi flow, killing dozens of them within a second. It turned out that Yi Chen's thunderball had destroyed a huge amount of attacks, and Lin Songhai was not to be underestimated either. The two of them were equal to a lot of people. Therefore, although the Azure Dragon Palace had fewer people, the effect was more than the remaining people from the Water Wave School and Sky Eagle cult. Keep killing. Yi Chen no longer used Thunder Devour. Instead, he used ordinary sword chi to attack. This way, although his individual attack power was not as high as Thunder Devour, with his sword speed, he could instantly unleash dozens or even hundreds of swords. The others followed suit, giving up on their ultimate techniques and choosing to attack with the fastest speed. In the blink of an eye, more than 300 people had unleashed thousands of attacks. The scene was extremely explosive. Stop them. The first round of attacks had already killed more than 10 people. The leader of Water School's expression changed a little. The battle prowess of Yi Chen and Lin Songhai was beyond his imagination. These two were definitely at the peak of master level. Perhaps only the leader himself could contend with one of them. In the second round of attacks, dozens of Water Wave sect members died, and the remaining members of the Sky Eagle cult also died. Right then, the Gold Dragon chariot was already less than 10 miles away from the enemy camp. The attacks that were thrown out from 10 miles away were not weakened at all, and were still the most powerful attack. As the distance got closer and closer, the casualties would get more and more exaggerated. In the second round of attacks, Yi Chen had already lost 3 or 4 warriors. But of course, they were all astral-reaching realm warriors, and their defense was way too low. Boom! Finally, the Gold Dragon chariot's defense had been broken through. That aggressive chi flow landed on everyone's body, continuously weakening their protective Zhen Yuan. Pooh! A middle-aged man on the left side of the chariot puked out a mouthful of blood. He was the one controlling the Gold Dragon chariot. Once the defense layer had been broken, he had already suffered a bit of backlash. Therefore, he could not block out the remaining chi flow, and his protective Zhen Yuan layer had been shattered. Change to someone else to control the chariot. You sit and rest. Yi Chen made the decision immediately. Yes. A chubby man pushed his Zhen Yuan and poured it into the Gold Dragon chariot. All of a sudden, a light gold transparent defense layer appeared around the chariot. In this round of attacks, the casualties on Yi Chen's side had reached double digits, reaching 14 people. 13 of them had died, and 1 had been badly wounded. The good thing was that the Water Wave sect had more casualties, which had suddenly increased to more than 30 people. Adding the Sky Eagle cult's casualties, it was more than 50. After a few rounds of attacks, Yi Chen's side had only lost less than 20 people, while the other side had lost nearly 100 people. The difference was huge. Seeing that the Gold Dragon chariot was about to reach them, the Water Wave sect's leader gritted his teeth and said, "Full defense. Wait for reinforcements." He would never have thought that in this battle, without any reinforcements, the other 4 batches of people had all been annihilated by Yi Chen's group, leaving not a single one alive. Pop, pop, pop. Switching from offense to defense, not a single Water Wave sect member had died. The thick Zhen Yuan barrier had firmly blocked the attacks from Yi Chen's group. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable defense in this world. It would be fine for a short period of time, but after a long time the Zhen Yuan barrier would be shaken, and would not be able to hold on. You guys have no hope. The other 4 batches have all become ghosts. Yi Chen said in shock. Bullshit. You guys can kill 4 batches of people? Do you know how many of them there are? Just a spit from one of them is enough to drown you all. The Water Wave sect side did not believe a single one of them. Yi Chen sneered. 4 groups of people. The largest group has 250 people, and the smallest group has 180 people. Am I right? Also, how do you think we managed to get here? If we had walked into the ambush from the front, you guys would not be so miserable. I don't believe it. The leader of the water wave sect was pale. He was starting to believe it, but even if he did, he could not say it out loud. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Yi Chen did not need to make everyone believe him. As long as he left a seed in their hearts, they would gradually feel despair. Boom, boom, boom. The Golden Dragon battle chariot stopped 5 miles away, continuously attacking the Zhen Yuan barrier. The Zhen Yuan barrier, which was previously as stable as a mountain, was now starting to shake. Time passed mercilessly, and the frequency of the Zhen Yuan shaking increased. Meanwhile, the astral-reaching realm warriors who had poured Zhen Yuan into the Zhen Yuan barrier started to bleed from time to time. They were badly wounded, since the Zhen Yuan barrier was closely related to them. The constant shaking of the Zhen Yuan barrier would cause them to suffer some backlash. Once or twice would not be a big deal, but after hundreds of times, the astral-reaching realm warriors would definitely not be able to handle it. Gradually, more and more astral-reaching realm warriors were getting wounded, and the Zhen Yuan barrier was getting weaker and weaker. The Zhen Yuan barrier was getting weaker and weaker, and more people were getting wounded. It was a vicious cycle that had no solution. The leader of the water wave sect saw that he could not hold on anymore, so he said with a stern face, "If you kill us, you won't have a good ending either. My water wave sect will pay you back 10 times. That is for the future. Let's think about the present." Yi Chen increased his attacking power. "Everyone, hold on. The reinforcements will come for sure." The leader of the water wave sect was desperate. He could only hope for a miracle. Crack. After 15 minutes, the Zhen Yuan barrier had been weakened to a certain extent, and cracks started to appear. Although the cracks were being repaired, the speed of repair was not as fast as the damage. Pung! The entire Zhen Yuan barrier had been shattered. Hundreds of astral-reaching realm warriors puked out blood as they were blown away, heavily wounded and on the verge of death. Most of the remaining astral-reaching realm warriors were wounded as well, and their battling power had been greatly reduced. As for the Sea of Souls realm warriors, although they had resisted the recoil, their blood and chi had been shaken, and their bodies had become sluggish. "Kill!" Yi Chen yelled. More than 300 attacks were mercilessly thrown toward the enemy camp. If it were before, the enemy camp might have been able to block them, but now there was less than 10% of them who could fight back. They were all either heavily wounded or paralyzed, unable to react in time. Blood-curdling screams were heard one after another, and half of the enemy camp had been cleared out. Some people started to run away. Unfortunately, those who tried to run would be taken care of by Yi Chen. Any random green lotus sword chi that contained the destruction sword intent would be able to kill a line of people. Not to mention astral-reaching realm warriors, even Sea of Souls realm warriors would not be able to block it. Yi Chen, who had the rank 5 destruction sword intent, had an astonishing attacking power. Rumble! Thousands of miles away from the 5 Gold Island, the group led by Deputy Palace Leader Su was forced to stop. In front of them, the seawater suddenly surged, and a water curtain that connected the sky and the earth rose out of nowhere, blocking their way. Under the seawater, dozens of huge black octopuses could be seen swimming. On the left side there were 300 warriors, and on the right side there were also 200 warriors. The two groups added together were about twice their number. Retreat! Su Danian knew that they had been ambushed, so he led his warriors and tried to escape. "Ha! You can't escape." Before they could escape for hundreds of miles, another 2 groups of warriors appeared, each with more than 200 warriors. They were from the Black King Gate and the Whirlwind Gate, respectively. "Your Azure Dragon Hall is quite daring. Half a month ago you killed dozens of our Black King warriors. This time you will pay it back 10 times. The leader of the Black King Gate had a cold expression. Deputy Su, let's fight with them. Su Danian led the warriors from the Azure Dragon Hall into despair. They all had the determination to die. Since they could not escape, they might as well fight with the enemies and kill one of them. Su Danian's face was dark. Don't fight recklessly for now. Save your yuan qi and wait for reinforcement. Don't even think about it. The other group also has 1,300 warriors protecting them. Without any surprises, they are all dead already. Of course, if they turn into ghosts, they might be able to help you. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate team said mockingly. How did you know about our operation? Su Danian still had hope in his heart. In the past half a month, he had not been idle. He had purposely investigated Yi Chen's background and found out that he was a very powerful warrior. He had never thought that there would be such a martial genius who could grow from a small martial genius to a great sword master, beating all the other martial geniuses in the continent. Therefore, he firmly believed that the others might die, but Yi Chen would definitely not die. Perhaps he would be able to break out of the encirclement with some of his warriors and regroup with them. In this way, although they would still be at a disadvantage, it was not completely hopeless. As long as they could bring back the resources, they would win. As for the rest, he had already given up hope. Right now, the most important thing was to stall for time and wait for Yi Chen's reinforcements. Chapter 683. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate knew that Su Danian was trying to stall for time, but he was not in a hurry at all. He did not believe that 1,300 people would not be able to handle 300 people. One round of attacks would be enough to take out half of them, and 2 rounds of attacks would definitely be enough to wipe them all out. This operation would be the biggest operation of the top 4 martial institutions. They had sent out 2,700 people in total, trying to take out all of the people from the Azure Dragon Palace. Therefore, this operation would be perfect, and there would be no accident. You are about to die. What is the point of knowing the truth? The leader of the Whirlwind Gate walked over slowly with his people, giving off a kind of pressure. At least let me die in peace. Su Danian glanced around with the corner of his eyes. There were 4 groups of enemies in front of him, and there were almost 1,000 of them. Meanwhile, there were less than 400 of them, including 50 Sea of Souls Realm Warriors and 305 Astral Reaching Realm Warriors. 400 against 1,000. If they used all of their power to defend, they would probably be able to handle 20 to 30 rounds of attacks, since the attacks would be scattered. Even if they focused their attacks, they would not be able to combine perfectly. On the other hand, if they used all of their power to defend, the Zhen Yuan wall would be able to combine perfectly, since everyone had the same Zhen Yuan. Even if they had different elements, they would be able to coordinate with each other. You want to know, but I will not tell you. Letting the enemies die in frustration would make me feel happier. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate waved his hand, signaling the people behind him to stop. 10 miles was enough. If they were too close, they might be attacked by the enemies before they died. I have guessed that there must be someone inside the Azure Dragon Palace. Being ambushed once could still be considered a coincidence, but being ambushed twice, even an idiot would know that there was someone inside the palace. However, no matter how hard Su Danian tried, he could not guess who it was. The leader of the palace, Wei Longtao, was unlikely, since he was the leader of the Azure Dragon Palace, which was the leader of the palace, and had a very high status. The possibility of him betraying the palace would be very low. The second leader, Wu Chuan, was also unlikely, since he had been friends with Wu Chuan for decades. He knew his personality very well. Excluding the 2 of them, the only ones who knew about this would be him and Yi Chen. Of course, it would be impossible for him. How could he lie to him? Yi Chen shouldn't be able to do it either. As a rare genius in 1,000 years, the possibility of betrayal was so small that it was negligible. Geniuses all had their own pride. They could be arrogant, they could be heartless, but they could not betray others. Betrayal was very despicable. Moreover, he could not think of anything that could make Yi Chen betray him. Yi Chen was currently in an explosive period of potential, and his future was boundless. What good would betrayal do him? After eliminating the other four, Su Danian knew that he had wasted his time. You can guess however you like. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate team did not comment. Just at this moment, black dots appeared in the distant sky. More and more black dots appeared, densely packed together. Vice Hall Master? The experts of the Azure Dragon Hall behind Su Danian were filled with hope. They did not want to die. Hence, when they saw the black dot, a trace of hope rose in their despair. Let's continue watching. Su Danian's voice trembled slightly. All of a sudden, 10 miles away from those black dots, another group of black dots appeared. The two groups of black dots were flying towards them from an angle. Su Danian's expression suddenly darkened. Yi Chen only had 300 people, but the number of those black dots had already exceeded 400. Therefore, they could not be Yi Chen's people. But then again, it made sense. Even if Yi Chen managed to lead his people to break out, he would definitely suffer a great loss. It would be a miracle if half of his people could survive, and it would be a miracle if 1/3 of his people could survive. The most likely scenario was that there would only be dozens of people left. Let's fight them. The last trace of hope had been shattered. The experts of the Azure Dragon Hall behind Su Danian looked extremely pale. They had been given hope, but it had been shattered at the same time. This was the cruelest thing. They had already given up on running away. Under the attack of more than 1,000 people, the possibility of running away was almost zero. Full defense. Su Danian had fallen into despair as well. If they could still hold on for 20 to 30 rounds of attacks before, then it would be great if they could hold on for 10 rounds now. The sudden increase of 400 people was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. They did not even have the confidence to fight with their lives on the line. Haha, you guys stop here. The leaders of the Black King Martial School and Whirlwind Gate looked like they were looking at a dead man. The reason why they did not care about Su Danian stalling for time was because of the fact that the situation had already been decided. Most importantly, they were waiting for the last two batches of people. After all, the number of enemies was not small either. 400 people versus 1,000 people would still be able to kill dozens of their people, which was not something they wanted to see. However, right now, the situation had already been decided. Attack. Without any hesitation, the leaders of the Black King Martial School and Whirlwind Gate waved their hand. Countless attacks landed on the thick Zhen Yuan wall like raindrop. The cracking sound reached an extreme level within a second, and even the eardrums were about to explode. Thousands of miles away, Yi Chen led his people and rushed over. We have an ambush here, and Vice Leader Su must have an ambush as well. I wonder if they can hold on until we get there. Xing Meiyan was secretly worried. Next, there might be a bloody battle. Everyone, follow behind me, and do not stray from the team. Sister Chen, you guys better not be more than 10 steps away from me. This time, it will be very dangerous. Yi Chen did not think that Vice Leader Su would be able to kill a lot of enemies. It was very likely that he would not be able to kill even one. In other words, this time, they would have to face more than 1,000 people. If they fought them head-on, they would not be able to win at all. Only by driving the battle chariot would they be able to charge into the enemy group and prevent them from doing anything. Even so, it would still be very dangerous. It would be a bloody battle, and the key to victory was not on Yi Chen's side, but on Vice Leader Su's side. If Vice Leader Su had reserved a lot of people, then Yi Chen would have the confidence to beat the enemies. Yes, Brother Yi. Chen Yusen nodded obediently. Before this, she had never participated in a real battle before. Seeing the enemies falling one after another in front of her, she was shocked. Right then, she finally realized how weak an individual's power was in a battle. Life and death could be decided in just a second. I do not need your protection. Lin Songhai secretly tightened his fists. In the battle before, he had lost to Yi Chen without a doubt. But it was a battle between two sides, so it would be hard to know how many people he had killed. In the upcoming battle, he would use all of his power and everything he had learned. I think you do not need my protection either, Yi Chen said with a light tone. A few thousand miles was only a couple of breaths for Yi Chen. But, for astral-reaching realm warriors, it was not a small distance. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the crowd finally saw Deputy Leader Su's men and the enemy's men. The scene was extremely brutal. The people led by Vice Leader Su had less than 300 people left, and with each breath, dozens of people would fall down. Meanwhile, the enemy's people had covered the sky. With a rough estimation, there were at least 1,300 people. The powerful attacks were like a meteor shower, attacking toward Vice Leader Su and the others. Everyone, follow behind. Kill. Holding his Thunder Disaster sword up high, Yi Chen stood in front of the battle chariot, his black hair fluttering in the wind. Kill. The rest of the people started to yell as well. What? The warriors from the Black King Martial School and the Whirlwind Martial School turned their heads in shock, looking at Yi Chen and the 300 people behind him. How is this possible? How did they get here? The leader of the Black King Martial School could not accept this fact. They could not have broken through the ambush. They must have taken a detour for some reason. The leader of the Whirlwind Martial School said with certainty. Regardless, they have already made it here. So what? We have 1,300 people on our side. Even if we split out half of it, we would still have 600 people. It would be more than enough to crush them. The leader licked his lips and waved his hand. People of the Whirlwind Martial School, listen up. Kill them all. Do not leave a single one alive. Kill. None of the warriors from the Whirlwind Martial School panicked, since they had the advantage in numbers. If they could not beat the enemies, then they might as well kill themselves. Just like that, the warriors from the Whirlwind Martial School split up and attacked Yi Chen and the rest, while the warriors from the Black King Martial School continued to attack Su Danian and the warriors from the Azure Dragon Palace. Deputy Leader Yi is here. Everyone, hold on. Su Danian did not know what he was feeling right now. He was excited, surprised, and happy. He had not felt as many emotions as he did right now. Haha, we have hope now. Brothers, hold on for a while longer. Compared to Su Danian, the others were so emotional that they even shed tears. From despair to a trace of hope, that trace of hope was shattered again, sinking them into an even deeper despair. However, amidst this deathly silence, Yi Chen had brought them a ray of hope. Right at this moment, Yi Chen's image had been deeply imprinted in everyone's hearts. Years later, they might forget about today's battle, but they would never forget Yi Chen, because Yi Chen had already become a part of their lives. If the potential that could burst out in despair was huge, then when hope appeared, the potential that could burst out would be even more shocking. All of them did not care about their injuries and overdraft their own lives. They only had one thought, and that was to survive. Rumble. The Golden Dragon battle chariot's 4 huge wheels were rolling, leaving a clear mark in the sky that did not disappear for a long time. Almost 300 warriors followed closely behind the battle chariot, rushing towards the incoming warriors. They were not afraid at all, because Yi Chen had brought them too much shock. With Yi Chen there, they believed that the victory would be theirs. With Yi Chen there, they would be invincible. Boom, 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 boom. Before they even made contact, the attacks had already clashed. Yi Chen's side had suffered a small loss, losing dozens of warriors while none of the warriors from the Whirlwind Martial School had died. Haha! Kill them all! The warriors from the Whirlwind Martial School were so proud that they had already killed dozens of warriors from the other side, which had boosted their morale. Yi Chen's expression did not change at all. He put his Thunder Disaster sword back into its scabbard and raised both of his hands. Shoo! 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 Beams of green lotus sword chi shot out like beams of light. Each of Yi Chen's fingers was equivalent to a top master-level warrior's full power attack. 10 fingers meant 10 people, and with the power of 10 people, the amount of damage they could do was equal to dozens of normal Sea of Souls realm warriors. All of a sudden, Yi Chen's side had suppressed the other side, and the Golden Dragon battle chariot continued to rush forward. 10 miles. 5 miles. 3 miles. Stop them. The leader of the Whirlwind Martial School was shocked as he yelled. Speed up. Yi Chen took over the control of the Golden Dragon battle chariot, pushing his soul power and Zhen Yuan at the same time. The Golden Dragon battle chariot's speed doubled as it rushed into the enemy's camp, tearing open a bloody path. Chapter 684. If it were the other Sea of Souls realm warriors, they would have been able to keep the advantage. But, as soon as Yi Chen drove the Gold Dragon chariot in, the formation of the Whirlwind Gate was thrown into chaos. Within the crowd, there were enemies as well as their own people, so they could not just attack randomly. As for defense, it would be even more of a joke, since the defense formed by dozens of people would not be able to stop the attacking team with the Gold Dragon chariot as the lead. With only one round of attacks, they would be able to open up a bloody path in front of them. The Gold Dragon chariot was moving at an extremely fast speed. If it were other Sea of Souls realm warriors who were controlling it, they might be able to overtake it and leave the enemy formation. But, under the control of Yi Chen, the chariot was like an angry dragon, but also like a mudfish. It rushed in and out of the enemy formation, opening up countless bloody paths. Looking down from the sky, one could clearly see that there were many bloody marks in the enemy formation, which was quite shocking. However, it was not like Yi Chen did not have any losses as well. Since there were less than 30 people on the chariot, the rest of them could only follow behind it like a tail. If the tail did not leave the formation, it would still be able to kill people. But, once it left the formation, it would be drowned in the crowd. After a couple of breaths, at least 30 people could not keep up with the formation and were drowned in the enemy formation. Bastard! Everyone, spread out! Spread out! The leader of the Whirlwind Gate was about to go crazy. It had only been a couple of seconds, and 200 people had already been killed. They were all shocked. Right now, dozens of people had died within each breath. It was not a battle at all. It was a massacre. Shoo! 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 Without the reminder from the leader of the Whirlwind Gate, the rest of the people had already reacted and started to fly in different directions. Yi Chen was not affected at all as he stood in front of the chariot and yelled, "Everyone, listen up! Attack the enemies in the front left! Spread out!" If they concentrated their attacks, they would only be able to kill the enemies in one line, which would be a complete waste of power. However, if they scattered their attacks, the attack range would be much bigger. Plus, Yi Chen did not ask them to attack in all directions, but to focus on the left front. That way, even if they scattered their attacks, they would still be able to deal a heavy blow to the warriors of Whirlwind Gate. As expected, after the enemies had spread out, although they had escaped from being crushed, because of their limited defense, the enemies on the left side were still dying one after another like it was raining. As for Yi Chen, he did not attack the enemies on the left side, but on the right side. Under his green lotus sword chi, the enemies were also falling from the sky one after another. The number of people he had killed was about 1/3 of the total number of the others, which was very impressive. This, the leader of the Black King Martial School was shocked, and so were the warriors of the Black King Martial School. Within 5 breaths of time, the Whirlwind Martial School had lost around 400 warriors. Their well-organized formation had been shattered with just one strike. The whole scene looked like a huge cat was hunting a bunch of mice. The mice were panicking and running away in all directions. It was a complete mess. Where did this brat come from? The leader of the Black King Martial School had very sharp eyes. He was very clear that if it were not for Yi Chen controlling the Golden Dragon chariot, It would be impossible to have this kind of effect. What scared him the most was that when Yi Chen was controlling the chariot, he was still able to shoot out countless rays of sword chi to open up a path for the team. In other words, without Yi Chen, the battling power of this team would be reduced by at least half. Everyone, let's kill our way out. Su Danian and the warriors of the Azure Dragon Hall behind him were very miserable. There were around 400 of them when they came, but now there were only around 100 left. If it were not for Yi Chen attracting all the firepower and distracting the warriors of the Black King Martial School, they would have been wiped out already. Among the remaining 100 warriors, there were still around 30 Sea of Souls Realm warriors, and almost 300 astral-reaching realm warriors had died. It was a horrifying number. Last time when Huanhai was ambushed, only 300 astral-reaching realm warriors had died. Taking advantage of the warriors of the Black King Martial School being distracted and reacting a bit slow, Su Danian finally led the warriors of the Azure Dragon Hall to successfully break out of the encirclement. However, after that, their numbers had been reduced to around 80 warriors, and 3 Sea of Souls realm warriors had died. Kill. After killing enough, Yi Chen's gaze landed on the warriors of the Black King Martial School. He waved his hand, and the golden dragon chariot changed direction, charging over. Coming! Coming! Spread out! Don't let him get in our midst! Even though the warriors of the Black King Martial School had been through hundreds of battles, they were still scared by Yi Chen's battle strategy. With the golden dragon chariot as the head, who would be able to handle it? Don't spread out! The leader of the Black King Martial School suddenly yelled. No matter how horrifying Yi Chen's battle strategy was, it would only work if he got in the middle of the formation. The reason why the warriors of the Whirlwind Martial School were killed was because they had chosen to fight head-on instead of using all of their power to defend. By the time they tried to defend, it would already be too late. With the previous example, the warriors of the Black King Martial School only needed to focus on defense and wait for the chance to counterattack. Then, it would only be a matter of time before the rest of the warriors from the Whirlwind Martial School recovered. But it would all be too late. Once the warriors of the Black King Martial School had spread out, they would naturally not be able to join hands to defend. Meanwhile, Yi Chen was only dozens of miles away from them. 1 breath, 2 breaths. In less than 3 breaths, the golden dragon chariot, with its invincible golden light, rolled over. Wherever it went, the air kept exploding, and 2 clear marks were left under the wheels. Some people who didn't have time to hide further away were directly torn into pieces by the attacks. The entire golden dragon chariot and the troops behind it were like a mobile battery, with the rumbling of the cannons, and the momentum was like a rainbow. After the Whirlwind Gates people, the Black King Martial School's people were also scattered. The number of casualties had increased from single digits to dozens of people, and it was still increasing. It was like a rolling snowball, getting bigger and bigger, and getting more and more spectacular. As for the warriors of the Black King Martial School, who had spread out their attacks, they could not break through the defensive layer of the Golden Dragon Chariot at all. Although the targets were small, they still needed to be orderly. Of course, the warriors on the Golden Dragon Chariot were fine, but the warriors behind it were not so lucky. People were constantly being killed, their blood splashing in the sky. From more than 340 warriors at its peak, Yi Chen's warriors were now less than 240 warriors. The number of warriors was decreasing every second. The massacre was still going on. The warriors of the Black King Martial School who were attacked covered their heads and ran for their lives, while the ones who were not attacked regrouped and attacked in an orderly manner. Although the warriors of the Black King Martial School had suffered a great loss, the pressure on Yi Chen's side had increased as well. Their warriors had been reduced to around 200. Gather with Deputy Su and the rest. Yi Chen was not blinded by the massacre. He made up his mind immediately and led his people to gather with Su Danian, preparing for the upcoming battle. Deputy Yi, Su Danian, have never admired anyone before. You are an exception. I, Su Danian, owe you my life. After escaping from death, Su Danian was in a good mood. The warriors of the Azure Dragon Palace behind him also looked respectful. Yi Chen had saved their lives, which earned them a lot of respect. However, the massacre that Yi Chen had brought with him also made them feel a bit scared. Yi Chen jumped off the golden dragon chariot and said, "We are all from the Azure Dragon Palace. Of course, we need to help each other. I was only doing what I was supposed to do. Deputy Su, you do not need to thank me. Haha, no matter what, it is because of you that I am still alive. If I can make it back safely today, I will definitely find you for a drink." Su Danian laughed. All right. Yi Chen did not reject him. After the two parties gathered together, their numbers had increased to around 270 people, which was less than half of the number they had when they first arrived. However, compared to their enemies, they were much better off. Although the Azure Dragon Palace had suffered a great loss this time, the four enemy forces were not having a good time either. They had lost even more people than the Azure Dragon Palace. The powerful warriors from the Black King Martial School did not chase after him. Right now they needed to catch their breaths and not blindly kill. Plus, under Yi Chen's attack, they had lost quite a lot. From the original 600 warriors, they had dropped to 380. Adding the remaining warriors from the Whirlwind Gate, there were only 600 of them left. It should be known that they still had 1,300 warriors before. Gather. The leader of the Black King Martial School had a dark expression on his face. He waved his hand and led his people to gather with the warriors of the Whirlwind Martial School. Right now, only by working together could they maintain their morale. If they fought alone, it would be impossible for them to fight against Yi Chen's team. "Brother Liao, what should we do next?" The leaders of the Whirlwind Martial School and the Black King Martial School stood side by side. "Kill." The leader of the Black King Martial School spat out one word. Today, if he went back like this, not only would his position in the Black King Martial School drop, he might even lose his position as a vice leader. He would also be looked down upon by the others. However, if he paid a heavy price to kill Yi Chen and the rest, it would be easier for him to find an excuse when he went back. After all, this accident was all because of Yi Chen. He believed that once the people above knew how terrifying Yi Chen was, they would not blame him for it. Instead, they would think that he had done a good job, as he had gotten rid of a terrifying enemy for the Black King Martial School. "Can we kill them?" The leader of the Whirlwind Gate hesitated. There were more than 600 warriors in the Whirlwind Gate, but now there were only 200 left. It was a complete mess, and many of them were wounded. The Black King Gate was in a better state than them, as they had only lost half of their men. "Brotherly, it seems like you are scared. Think about it, we have 600 people, can't we stop their attack? As long as we work together, we can drag them into a battle. With our numbers, we can definitely kill them." The leader of the Black King Martial School did not lose his cool as he analyzed. "That is true, but look at our people." The leader of the Whirlwind Martial School turned his head and said with a bitter smile. Hearing him, the leader of the Black King Martial School also turned his head, and his expression looked even worse. Although they had the advantage in numbers, which was more than twice the number of the Azure Dragon Hall, their morale was not even comparable. On the side of Yi Chen, their morale was extremely high. Their eyes were filled with confidence and killing intent, while on the Black King Martial School's side, they were all scared, trying to avoid eye contact. It was obvious that they were scared of Yi Chen. Thinking about it, it made sense. Wars were not scary, what was scary was a one-sided massacre. Yi Chen had left too much of a shadow in their hearts, and their morale could not be raised at all. They always thought that Yi Chen could continue to attack and kill them. Chapter 685. I am not willing to let them go just like this. The leader of the Black King Gate clenched his fists tightly, his expression fierce. Brother Liao, to be honest, even if our people's morale is fine, and we can successfully drag them into a battle, there is still not much of a chance for us to kill them all. If we do this, we will only lose a lot of people for nothing. 600 people against 270 people could definitely take the upper hand, but it would not be easy to kill all of them. Plus, among these 270 people, there were top master-level warriors like Yi Chun and Lin Songhai. If the two of them wanted to escape, they would definitely be able to. In other words, if they continued to fight, the result would be Yi Chun and Lin Songhai escaping, and they would lose a third of their people. Kill 1,000 enemies, lose 800 of your own people. This was not what the leader of the Whirlwind Gate wanted to see. After saying that, the leader of the Whirlwind Gate stared at the leader of the Black King Gate. Taking a deep breath, the leader of the Black King Gate said in a low voice, "You are right. I have not thought this through. When I go back, I will report this to the higher-up." That's right. I believe that the higher-ups will not ignore this person's existence. They will definitely send powerful warriors to deal with him, unless he hides in his turtle shell. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate revealed a smile. "Everyone from the Black King Gate, retreat. Everyone from the Whirlwind Gate, retreat." After reaching an agreement, the two gave the order to retreat without any hesitation. They are retreating? On Yi Chen's side, everyone looked at each other. They did not expect that the enemies would choose to retreat when they had the advantage in numbers. Haha, they really are retreating. We won. Seeing the leaders of the Black King Gate and Whirlwind Gate leave with their people, the powerful warriors from the Azure Dragon Hall cheered. They were not afraid of death, but they wanted to live even more. No matter how confident they were, they did not think that they could survive in a direct battle. After all, the number of enemies was more than 2 times their number, which was not something they could ignore. Right then, the leader of the Black King Gate, who had already flown far away, turned around and said with a loud voice, "This time, I will remember. Next time, I will make your head roll on the ground. Next time, I'm afraid you won't have the chance." From the beginning to the end, Yi Chun had not revealed his strongest strength. In a war, a person's strength was indeed reduced by a lot. Even Yi Chun did not dare to take too many attacks head-on. However, he had the Imperial Sword technique. If he used the Imperial Sword technique to fly, his speed would increase to a terrifying level. Not to mention hundreds of people surrounding him, even if thousands of people surrounded him, he could still escape. However, the Imperial Sword technique was his trump card, and he would not reveal it easily. I hope you can still say that when the time comes. The leader of the Black King Gate left with his men and quickly disappeared into the horizon. Who? Su Danian heaved a sigh of relief. He looked like he had just survived a disaster. Deputy Palace Master Yi, words cannot express my gratitude. Su Danian cupped his fists at Yi Chun. Putting away the golden dragon chariot, Yi Chun smiled faintly. Right, Deputy Palace Master Yi, how did you guys get here? Didn't you get ambushed? They were ambushed here, and Yi Chen's side was also ambushed. Therefore, they were very curious as to how Yi Chun got here. Could it be that Yi Chun could predict good or bad luck? Yi Chun said, "We killed our way here." Killed our way here? Su Danian did not quite understand. Xing Meiyan interrupted, "Deputy Su, Deputy Yi is right. We killed our way here and killed all the Water School and Sky Eagle cult members, killing more than 1,300 people. Of course, without Deputy Yi, we would have been ambushed, just like you guys, and suffered heavy losses." Killed more than 1,300 people? Su Danian's eyes were wide open. After collecting all the resources from the 5 Gold Island and Mysterious Spirit Island, the group flew to the number 2 Volcano Island. After collecting a large amount of mid-rank fire cloud stones, the group began their journey back to the Azure Dragon Palace. When Yi Chun and the others returned to the Azure Dragon Palace, it did not cause much of a commotion. However, when the news of Yi Chun leading his people and killing more than 2,000 enemies spread out, the entire Azure Dragon Palace was shocked. Killing more than 2,000 people, what kind of concept was this? Even the achievements of the Azure Dragon Palace added together in the past few years could not compare to this. It could be said that this was a hearty victory, which would at least make the 4 enemy forces feel heartache for a long time. Among the 2,000 people killed, 600 were from Water Sect, 700 from Sky Eagle Cult, and 400 from Whirlwind Gate. The Black King Gate had the least casualties, with around 300 people killed. On average, each enemy force had lost 500 people. An unprecedented victory, a victory that restored the prestige of the Azure Dragon Palace. Originally, the Azure Dragon Palace had already lost the will of the people, and the cohesiveness was much lower than before. However, after this news was spread out, everyone's first reaction was to clench their fists, and their faces turned red. Naturally, an image appeared in their minds. A blue-robed sword artist, Yi Chen, leading hundreds of people and sweeping across the battlefield, unstoppable. Yi Chen had given them confidence, as well as a fighting spirit that had been missing for a long time. Second leader Ye's people have lost quite a lot. Let's hurry up and apply to join them. If we are late, it will not be our turn anymore. Haha, I have already applied. I am here to ask you to apply as well. So unloyal. How could they not wait for me? This was the most talked about topic after the news spread out. Killing the enemies would naturally bring rewards. Among the 2,000 people, there were 1,700 astral reaching realm warriors, which would be 85,000 contribution points. There were 300 Sea of Souls realm warriors, and 250 normal ones, which would be 250,000 contribution points. 38 battle attendants, 114,000 contribution points. 15 head attendants, 75,000 contribution points. 4 vice hall masters, 40,000 contribution points. In total, the total contribution points reached an astonishing 564,000. As for the distribution, the deputy was twice that of the head attendant was twice that of the battle attendants, and the battle attendants were twice that of ordinary Sea of Soul realm experts. As for the astral reaching experts, they were the least, 1/20th of ordinary Sea of Soul realm expert. Since the majority of the people were killed by Yi Chen and his people, the contribution points were counted as theirs, and had nothing to do with Su Danian and the rest. On Yi Chen's side, there were only 200 people left. 150 astral reaching experts, 28 ordinary Sea of Souls realm warriors, 24 battle attendants, 7 head attendants, and 1 vice hall master. According to the distribution, astral reaching experts could get 234 contribution points, ordinary Sea of Souls realm warriors could get 4,600 and 700, battle attendants could get 9,000, and head attendants 18,000. Yi Chen's share was the highest, about 37,000 contribution points. Not to mention anything else, just the amount of contribution points was enough to make many people's eyes turn red. It should be known that the contribution points of Dragon God's Celestial Palace were extremely valuable. Without wars, it was hard to earn them. Only wars could allow them to earn more contribution points. This was also the method of Dragon God's Celestial Palace to stimulate people's enthusiasm. The ones who made the most profit were naturally the astral-reaching disciples of Dragon God's Celestial Palace. According to their strength, each of them should have gotten 234 contribution points. However, because of their identity as disciples, they had all become battle attendants. Therefore, the contribution points were distributed according to the battle attendants' distribution. It should be known that contribution points were not only useful in Azure Dragon Hall, but also in the entire Dragon God Celestial Palace. Normally, these astral-reaching disciples wouldn't even have 1,000 contribution points. However, this time, they had earned more than 9,000. Of course, this was also paid with their lives. As disciples of Dragon God's Celestial Palace, they had the status of geniuses. Their lives were much more precious than ordinary astral-reaching experts. Moreover, even with Yi Chen's protection, 4 of them had died. There were two groups of people who didn't get any contribution points. One group was Sue Danian's group. They had only killed a few people, which was insignificant. However, they had also received some rewards. Although they weren't as precious as contribution points, it was still better than nothing. Being able to return alive was already enough for them. What else could they ask for? The other group consisted of dead people. This time, there were 700 people who had gone out, but only 270 people had returned. A total of 430 people had died, which was a huge number. They couldn't get any contribution points, nor could they get any rewards, because they were already dead. However, their families would receive special care from Dragon God's celestial palace. Some resources would be sent over, allowing their families to produce more experts. The preciousness of contribution points could be measured by the items they could be exchanged for. In Dragon God's celestial palace, an ordinary mid-grade artifact was worth 300 contribution points, a peak mid-grade artifact was worth 500, an ordinary upper-grade artifact was worth 4,000, and a peak upper-grade artifact was worth 5,000. As for defensive artifacts, they were a bit more, about 1.5 times more than offensive artifact. A semi-extreme grade offensive artifact was worth 30,000 contribution points, and a semi-extreme grade defensive artifact was worth 45,000 contribution points. The amount of contribution points Yi Chen had obtained was more than enough to exchange for a semi-extreme grade offensive artifact, but it was still lacking a bit for a semi-extreme grade defensive artifact. If it were in the outside world, wanting to buy a suitable artifact would cost God knows how many spirit stones. Many people would have to exhaust their entire fortune to gather enough artifact. However, in Dragon God's celestial palace, contribution points were more than enough. Apart from exchanging for artifacts, one could also exchange for pills, gems, profound martial skills, secret arts, and spirit stones. From this aspect, it could be seen that the burden of Dragon God's celestial palace was huge. Without sufficient resources, it could easily collapse. This was also the main reason why Dragon God's celestial palace would rather fight against the four great powers than give up on more resources. With 37,000 contribution points, Yi Chen didn't think about exchanging for artifacts. He already had both offensive and defensive artifacts, and they were all at the semi-extreme grade. As for pills, he didn't lack any, not to mention the others. However, he was somewhat interested in the secret arts of Dragon God's celestial palace. Xia Hozuan had once used Blood Emperor Killing Finger, and its might was extremely great. Yi Chen had seen it with his own eyes. Thinking about it, no one would think that they had too many secret arts. Outside, the more secret arts one had, the better. It would be harder to see through one's background. Chapter 686. Ordinary exchanges could be done in the Azure Dragon Palace, but high-level exchanges would have to be done in the palace headquarters, such as profound martial skills, secret arts, and semi-extreme grade artifacts. Only Yi Chen and a few head attendants had the qualifications to do high-level exchanges. The others' contribution points were far from enough. On this day, Yi Chen rode on his flying puppet and headed toward the headquarters of Dragon God's celestial palace. The reason why he didn't use the conveyor gate was because it consumed extreme-grade spirit stones. If he used it for no reason, the palace would collapse sooner or later. Although Yi Chen didn't have any restrictions, and no one would say anything if he used it, Yi Chen didn't intend to do so. Anyway, the distance from the palace to the palace was only 15 million li, and it would take him about a month to ride the flying puppet. Of course, riding the flying puppet was only a cover. Once he was far away, Yi Chen would try the riding sword flight. Riding sword flight was Yi Chen's strongest speed. When he had just learned it, Yi Chen had used it before. However, at that time, his realm was not that high. But now, he had already cultivated it to the peak of the second layer. He really wanted to try the extreme speed of the riding sword flight. Alright, let's try the extreme speed of the riding sword flight. Above the boundless ocean, Yi Chen put away his flying puppet and made a sword art with his finger. The gold sword on his back automatically came out of its sheath with a clang sound, floating in front of Yi Chen. Taking a step forward, Yi Chen stepped onto the rather wide gold sword, steadily standing on it. Go! Activating the sword art once again, the gold sword slightly trembled and shot out at a frightening speed like a beam of light from the sky. However, Yi Chen, who was standing on the gold sword, didn't show any signs of being flung away. Because during the process of using the riding sword flight, his feet and the gold sword had formed countless connections, as if they had taken root and sprouted. So fast. So it turns out that when one is fast to the extreme, the scenery on both sides will slow down. There won't be anything that can't be seen clearly. In fact, Yi Chen had misunderstood. If an ordinary person's speed suddenly increased by a lot, their eyes wouldn't be able to keep up. This was because they wouldn't be able to adapt. But the reason why Yi Chen was able to adapt was because Yi Chen's limit was far from being reached. It should be known that Yi Chen's soul force was 5 times that of an ordinary person. Unless his speed suddenly increased by 5 times, it would be impossible for him to not adapt. It's about 70 times the speed of sound now. 72 times, 74 times, 75 times. When the speed reached 75 times the speed of sound, the speed of the sword kinesis flight could no longer be increased. It was as if there was an invisible shackle restricting the speed. Too fast. Using the sword light flying art, I can only reach 50 times the speed of sound at most. But the sword kinesis flight art has increased my speed by half. Moreover, using the sword light flying art consumes more Jin Yuan than using the sword kinesis flight. It should be the effect of the soul force. What kind of concept was 75 times the speed of sound? It was equivalent to traveling 51 li in one breath, which would be 360,000 li in 2 hours. In one day, he would be able to travel 4,400,000 li. In the world where Yi Chen came from, he would be able to circle around the earth 50 times in one day. The sword kinesis flight will consume a lot of soul force. Although it is almost negligible, there will be problems after a long time. I'll just maintain it at 60 times the speed of sound. Knowing that the highest speed of the sword kinesis flight was 75 times the speed of sound, Yi Chen gradually slowed down, maintaining it at around 60 times the speed of sound. 4 days later, Yi Chen arrived at the Dragon God's celestial palace. Without going anywhere else, Yi Chen went straight to his own residence, the Red Cloud restaurant. He then called over the attendant, Yanzi. Dragon God Envoy, you're back. Yanzi was a little surprised. Yeah. Yi Chen nodded and asked, where is the place where the Dragon God's celestial palace keeps the profound sense martial arts and secret arts? Take me there. I know about this. There is a secret pavilion in the Dragon God's celestial palace, where the profound sense martial arts and secret arts are stored. Dragon God Envoy, follow me. Yanzi led the way in the front. After about an hour, the two arrived in front of a group of buildings in the core area of the palace. In the middle of the buildings there was a pavilion. It was about 3 floors high, looking simple and unadorned. It had a special calming feeling to it. Dragon God Envoy, that pavilion is the secret pavilion. I can't go in, so I can only take you here. Yanzi stopped. This bottle of yuan refining pellets is for you. Yi Chen took out a bottle of pellets from his storage ring and threw it to Yanzi. When he was in the Yi family, he often had to reward people. Therefore, he had a lot of low-rank pellet. This yuan refining pellet was a great help for clasping yuan realm warriors to make a breakthrough. It was one of the top mid-rank pellet. Thank you, Dragon God Envoy. Yanzi took over the pellet while trembling. Yuan refining pellets could be found in the Dragon God's celestial palace as well. It would cost 400 contribution points to exchange for one bottle, and she only had around 50 contribution points. It should be known that the contribution points in the Dragon God's Celestial Palace were way too valuable. As a clasping yuan realm attendant, very few people would have more than 100 contribution points, since they would exchange for resources and help themselves sometimes. Right now, Yan Zi's cultivation was at peak level mid-clasping yuan realm. With this bottle of pellets, she was confident that she could reach late clasping yuan realm within 3 months, which would save her a lot of hard work. Without noticing Yan Zi's happy expression, Yi Chen walked into this group of buildings. There were a lot of defense lines outside the pavilion. Yi Chen did not want to cause any trouble, so he directly flashed his dragon tag, which allowed him to pass through without any obstacles. Arriving in front of the pavilion, Yi Chen walked up the stairs. Halt! The elder guarding the first floor of the secret pavilion walked out. I am Yi Chen, Dragon God Envoy of the Dragon God's Celestial Palace. Yi Chen flashed his dragon tag as usual. You are Yi Chen? The master's eyes brightened. Indeed. The master smiled. Since you are the Dragon God Envoy, then I have no right to stop you. I will lead the way for you. Thank you. Yi Chen hesitated for a while, then nodded. He did not know much about the secret pavilion, and Yan Zi was only a clasping yuan realm attendant. Naturally, she would not be able to tell him much useful information. If the master could lead the way for him, it would save him a lot of effort. The master's family name was Tian, and he had a very high cultivation, reaching peak level late seas of Soul's realm. Although he did not have much power here, all the members of the Master Association had to respect him, and would not dare to be rude to him. Only a few people in the whole Dragon God's Celestial Palace could have the Master lead the way for them. The secret pavilion has 3 floors in total. The first floor has low-rank Profound Sense Martial Arts and top-rank Earth Realm Secret Arts. The second floor has mid-rank Profound Sense Martial Arts and low-rank Heaven Realm Secret Arts, and the third floor has high-rank Profound Sense Martial Arts and mid-rank Heaven Realm Secret Arts. Of course, there are not many high-rank Profound Sense Martial Arts, only 3 of which were all created by the leader, and 5 mid-rank Heaven Realm Secret Arts as well. The master seemed to be very familiar with them. Yi Chen said, "Let's go to the second floor first." The Profound Sense Martial Arts and Secret Arts on the first floor did not interest Yi Chen at all. All right. Under the guidance of the master, Yi Chen arrived at the second floor. Although Yi Chen's goal this time was the secret art, since he was already here, he was prepared to observe as much as he could. Profound Sense Martial Arts and Secret Arts were both worth looking at. After all, every Profound Sense martial art had its own unique features, and he might be able to learn something from it. Profound Sense Martial Arts and Heaven Realm Secret Arts were all recorded inside the Jade Letters, and could not be observed directly. But, right next to the Jade Letters there would be a thin booklet with the introduction and description of the Profound Sense Martial Arts and Secret Arts, so that the people who chose them would have some understanding in case they chose the wrong one. Yi Chen casually picked up a mid-rank Wind Profound Sense Martial Art and opened it. Wind Dragon Break, a Wind Profound Sense Martial Art. Using the wind as the source, it condenses the shape of a dragon. It is very flexible and powerful. Once trained to completion, it can instantly condense 9 dragon-shaped chi flows, which can be used for both offense and defense. Mid-rank Profound Sense Martial Art, 3-star rating. 4-star? There are ratings for the Profound Sense Martial Arts here? Yi Chen asked. The master said, within the same rank, the Profound Sense Martial Arts have different levels as well. According to the effect and power of the Profound Sense Martial Arts, there is a rating of 1 to 5 stars. 1 star is the lowest, which belongs to those people who have just started to create mid-rank Profound Sense Martial Arts. 2 stars is the average level, and 3 stars is already very high. Most of the Master Level C of Soul's Realm warriors can only create 1 3-star rated mid-rank Profound Sense Martial Art in their lifetime, which is already enough to be proud of. As for 4 stars, only the most talented warriors can create it. 5 stars is the highest rating, and the one who created it must be a shocking martial genius. I see. Yi Chen thought to himself, my gold pattern should be at the 4-star level, and my thunder devourer should be at the 5-star level. As for my gold fury, it has already surpassed the 5-star level and is approaching the high-rank profound sense martial art level. But it is not completed yet, so it is only 40–50% complete. He nodded to himself. The rating of the secret pavilion was very practical. For those people who could not create their own profound sense martial arts, if they chose a 5-star profound sense martial art, they would need to spend a lot of time to learn it, and might not even make any progress at all. But, if they chose a 1-star profound sense martial art, it would be much easier, and they would not be at a loss of what to do. After that, Yi Chen looked through a lot more mid-rank profound sense martial arts. All of the mid-rank profound sense martial arts on the 2nd floor of the secret pavilion were basically 2 or 3 stars. There were very few 1-star ones and even fewer 4-star ones. As for 5-star ones, it was not even 1% of all the mid-rank profound sense martial arts. Compared to the profound sense martial arts, the low-rank Heaven Realm secret martial arts seemed to be much rarer. What was a secret art? It was a secret art that would not be passed on to others. Between the same rank secret arts and martial arts, the secret art would be dozens of times more precious. Therefore, the 2nd floor of the secret pavilion did not have mid-rank Heaven Realm secret arts, but low-rank Heaven Realm secret arts, which were 1 level lower than mid-rank profound sense martial arts. Tiger Vigor Body, low-rank Heaven Realm secret art. Mysterious Spirit Eyes, low-rank Heaven Realm secret art. Demon Ox Mountain Breaking Spell, low-rank Heaven Realm secret art. Although there were not many secret arts, Yi Chen still spent a lot of time looking through them. Among them, the Tiger Vigor Body was a bone training secret art. Once trained, the bones would be extremely tough, and would not be easily damaged. The Mysterious Spirit Eyes was a secret eye art. After trained, the user could see the natural Yuan Qi with his naked eyes, as well as the Zhen Yuan track inside the enemy's body. It was a very useful auxiliary secret art. The Demon Ox Mountain Breaking Spell was even more precious than the other 2. It was actually a secret art that used power. If there were body training experts here, they would definitely choose it. Chapter 687. The Tiger Vigor Body trains the bones, and at the end, the bones will be as hard as a mid-rank great weapon, which will be extremely hard to break. However, it will also make the bones of the person who trains it thicker, and the appearance will gradually change. Forget about it. The Mysterious Spirit Eyes can clearly see the Yuan Qi distribution in the world, and the Zhen Yuan inside the enemy's body will not be able to hide. At the end, I can even see the path of the solid objects sticking together, and break it with one attack. However, I have the eyes of the soul, so training the Mysterious Spirit Eyes is just a waste. Yi Chen was slightly hesitant. He didn't want to learn the Tiger Vigor Physique, and the Profound Spirit Eyes, but the Ox Demon Mountain Crushing Art could increase his strength by several times and increase his close combat strength by a level. Demonic Bull Mountain Crushing Art is pretty good. My Dragon God Celestial Palace has many body refining experts who have cultivated this art. Body refining experts of the same level are simply not their opponent. The Pavilion Elder nodded slightly and said to Yi Chen, Elder Tian, bring me to the 3rd floor of the secret pavilion. Yi Chen planned to go to the 3rd floor of the secret pavilion to have a look. There were 5 Heaven Realm mid-tier secret techniques there. If there was one that he liked, it would be much easier for him to choose. Alright, follow me. The Pavilion Guardian Elder turned around and walked toward the stairway leading to the 3rd floor of the secret pavilion. The 3rd floor of the secret pavilion was very simple. There was nothing in the center, but 8 bookshelves were arranged in the pattern of the 8 trigrams. On each bookshelf, there was a jade slip and a thin booklet. On the 3rd floor, the Pavilion Elder stood aside, waiting for Yi Chen to make his choice. Starting from the first bookshelf on the left, Yi Chen picked up the booklets one by one and opened them. The first book was a high-rank profound martial art, Poison Dragon Drill. The Poison Dragon Drill only contained one type of profound, which was the profound of water. However, if one wanted to cultivate the Poison Dragon Drill to the highest realm, one would need to comprehend the profound of water to great completion. Once cultivated, the power of the Poison Dragon Drill could even make people with strong defenses feel fear. This was a profound martial art that specialized in breaking through defenses, and it was evaluated as 2 stars. The second one was the Azure Dragon Claw. It contained 2 profounds, the Wood Profounds and the Bone Profounds. The fusion of the 2 profounds allowed this profound martial skill to have a great potential. With one claw, one's hands and feet would go numb, and one would not be able to exert any strength. It was like being grabbed by a huge dragon. The third book was called The Domain of Sea. It also contained 2 profounds, the Water Profounds and the Wood Profound. The Domain of Sea was a domain-type profound martial skill. As for what a domain was, it was a unique force field that could increase one's own strength and decrease the enemy's strength. The Domain of Sea was very powerful because it required one to comprehend both the Water Profounds and the Wood Profounds to great success. It was rated as high as 4 stars. Without a doubt, these 3 high-grade profound martial arts were all created by the Dragon King. Too strong. Yi Chen sighed with emotion. According to the description in the booklet, Yi Chen could completely visualize a scene in his mind. A blurry human figure was continuously performing the Poison Dragon Drill, Azure Dragon Claw, and Domain of Sea, toying with the enemy in the palm of his hand, killing them with one strike. Even if my Gold Hurricane is trained to perfection and becomes a high-grade profound martial skill, it will only be rated as 1 star. It is not comparable at all. High-grade profound martial skills are already so powerful. I wonder what level a top-grade profound martial skill would be at? Above the high-grade profound martial skills were the top-grade profound martial skills, which were already very close to the natural laws. They were unpredictable and extremely dangerous, walking on the edge of the Great Tao. Senior Battle King had met an old man before. That old man pointed his finger at the sky, and a sun immediately appeared in the sky. Although it was not as big as the sun in the sky, its shape was exactly the same as the sun. It was unimaginably horrifying. According to the Battle King's speculation, that sun should contain a few kinds of profound: the earth profound, the fire profound, and the water profound. Fire and water were opposites, and it would be extremely difficult to combine them. At least, the Battle King could not estimate how high the old man's realm was, and could only admire him. Don't bite off more than you can chew. I haven't even mastered the Gold Hurricane yet. If I continue to study a high-grade profound martial skill, it will just be a waste of time. Although training is about being brave and diligent, it is also about achieving success when the conditions are right. I can't force it just to increase my power. Without taking another look at the high-grade profound martial skills, Yi Chen came to the 4th bookshelf. The master nodded in his mind. When he first came to the secret pavilion, he was obsessed with these 3 high-grade profound martial skills. How could he not take a second look at them? On the other hand, Yi Chen's determination was something he had never seen before, which made him gasp in admiration. This kid's future is limitless. One day the wind, the clouds, and the water will all flow for him, and he will become a legend. The master had been guarding the pavilion for almost 100 years. He had already trained his impetuous heart into a transparent heart. He did not judge people by their appearance, but by their inner qualities. Mid-rank Heaven Realm Secret Art, Blood Chi Azura. Mid-Heaven ranked secret arts were much more mysterious and powerful than low Heaven ranked secret art. This Blood Chi Azura was actually a secret art that cultivated blood chi. When cultivated to minor completion, one's blood chi would increase by several fold. The blood qi in one's body would be like a furnace, impenetrable by ghosts and gods. When cultivated to major completion, one would be able to condense a blood qi azura behind one's back, possessing unimaginable might and boundless vitality. Entering the secret pavilion requires a firm mind. Even with my current state of mind, I feel a bit restless. I wonder what kind of performance those newcomers will have. Everyone had the heart of a powerful warrior. Some people, due to various reasons, had lost the heart of a powerful warrior, and some people, because of the strong warriors, became stronger and stronger. However, no matter whether they had the heart of a powerful warrior or not, they would be greatly affected when they came to the secret pavilion. The profound martial arts and secret skills in the secret pavilion were all earth-shattering. Even if they knew that they could not cultivate them, they would still have a daydream and lose their calmness, which was quite unbearable. The first and second floors of the secret pavilion were still fine, but the third floor was extremely tempting. Every single one of these books would cause a bloody storm, and even rank 5 martial schools would want to fight for them. The Dragon God's Celestial Palace was a top rank 5 martial school, which was way more powerful than normal rank 5 martial schools. Therefore, the high-rank profound sense martial arts and mid-rank heaven realm secret arts would definitely drive people crazy. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen put down the blood qi azura book and walked towards the 5th shelf. Mental Wall. Illusion Eye. Survival Tao. The second secret art was Mental Wall, the third was Illusion Eye, and the fourth was Survival Tao. Mental Wall was a soul power training secret art. Once trained, it would be able to block out some mental power attacks or traps like illusions in dreams. Although it would not increase one's power directly, it would make one more perfect and flawless, which would increase one's survivability. Illusion Eye was the same as Mysterious Spirit Eyes, which were eye spells. The difference was that Illusion Eye was a secret art that could make the enemy hallucinate. Once the eyes were opened, the illusion attack would be launched immediately, which would be impossible to defend against. Once the eyes were closed, the illusion would disappear without a sound. The path of seeking survival was the most special. Those who cultivated the path of seeking survival couldn't directly increase their strength, nor did it have any supplementary effects. However, it could make a person's will to live extremely intense. One shouldn't underestimate the will to live. When a person was faced with a desperate situation and fell into a situation where death was certain, a person with a strong will to live would erupt with an unimaginable power. The human body was a small universe, and there were too many unknown things. If one could study one's body thoroughly, he would no longer be a human, but a god. Unfortunately, these 3 secret arts were not as attractive to Yi Chen as the blood qi azura. Although Mental Wall was good, his talent was soul power, and his soul will was very strong. How could he easily fall into an illusion or a dream? It should be known that a sword artist's will was the most aggressive, and they would never train this kind of conservative secret art. In other words, if he relied on Mental Wall to defend against the enemy's illusion attack, then he would not be a sword artist, because his sword will was not strong enough. Of course, Yi Chen did not need Illusion Eye. Using illusion to defeat his opponent was not in line with his sword art. Survival Tao. Yi Chen never lacked the survival desire. Most importantly, he wanted to use his own power to defeat all negative emotions. Out of the 5 secret arts, there was only one left. Middle rank Heaven Realm secret art, Blood Severing Ghost Finger. Picking up the booklet, Yi Chen opened it to the first page. After a long while, Yi Chen revealed a shocked expression. So scary. The other secret arts did not have star ratings behind them, because they all had their own specialties and different effects. However, Blood Severing Ghost Finger had a rating behind it. It was not 1 star, 2 stars, or 3 stars, or even 4 stars, but the highest was 5 stars. In other words, Blood Severing Ghost Finger was one of the best middle-rank Heaven Realm secret art. Blood severing meant cutting off one's blood qi, which was the foundation of one's body. Losing one's blood chi was equal to losing one's life essence, and it was impossible to survive. Losing a small part of one's blood chi, one's explosive power, reaction, insight, and even physical strength would be greatly reduced. Ghost finger did not have a specific meaning, it was just a description. It meant that, under one finger, one would become a ghost. Blood-severing ghost finger could cut off one's blood chi, and one finger would become a ghost. Sinister, domineering, horrifying. This was a finger of death. When trained to the minor realm, it would have a terrifying power. When trained to the great realm, one would not need to get close to the enemy, he only needed to point his finger, and the enemy's blood chi would automatically disappear, as if they had been brought to hell to nourish the ghost god. Blood-severing ghost finger was very difficult to train. No, it could no longer be described as difficult, because according to the Dragon King's description, no one had been able to truly train blood-severing ghost finger. Even the Dragon King himself had only trained it to the minor realm, which had nothing to do with comprehension, but an invincible courage to judge life and death. I'll choose this. Yi Chen made up his mind. Seeing Yi Chen pick up the jade scroll, the pavilion elder frowned slightly. Dragon God Envoy, originally, no one could train this blood-severing ghost finger without the palace lord's permission, but before he went into seclusion, he said that he would fulfill all your requirements, so you are qualified to train it. But I have to remind you, no one has ever successfully trained blood-severing ghost finger, not even the palace lord. Do you really want to choose it? He was doing this for Yi Chen's own good. He did not want Yi Chen to waste his time on training blood-severing ghost finger. If he could successfully train it, it would be fine, but this blood-severing ghost finger was extremely strange. No matter how talented one was, without the specific requirements, one would not be able to train it. I'll try, no need to worry. Although he said so, Yi Chen had no intention of trying. If that's the case, then I won't say anything more. The pavilion elder sighed, but still kept his mouth shut. How many contribution points does this blood-severing ghost finger cost? Yi Chen asked. The pavilion elder laughed. You are the Dragon God Envoy, you don't need contribution points, and this blood-severing ghost finger can't be exchanged with contribution points. If that's the case, then so be it. Yi Chen still wanted to use contribution points to exchange, but he also understood that even if it was possible to exchange for blood-severing ghost finger, it would be a shocking amount, at least 100,000 contribution points. Chapter 688. Arriving at the second floor of the secret pavilion, Yi Chen thought about it and decided not to take the demonic bull mountain breaking spell. Right now, just the blood-severing ghost finger alone would cost him a lot of energy. If he were to train the demonic bull mountain breaking spell as well, his training time might be completely wasted. Everything would have to wait until he cultivated blood-severing ghost finger to minor completion. Dragon God Envoy, just cultivate blood-severing ghost finger. Don't spread it out. Sending Yi Chen to the pavilion's entrance, the elder reminded. Yi Chen said, Rest assured, Elder Tian. Yi Chen is not an impulsive person. After saying these words, he started walking away from the pavilion. Palace Master and young Miss Insight is too formidable. The elder retracted his gaze and returned to the pavilion. A living person had come to the Dragon God's celestial palace. If they didn't even know about it, then the palace wouldn't be called Dragon God's celestial palace. Outside the Red Cloud residence, Elder Yu was waiting. Dragon God Envoy. Seeing Yi Chen, Elder Yu revealed a smile. Elder Yu, take a seat inside. Yi Chen waved his hand, and the Red Cloud residence's array opened. Under the mid-grade maple tree, in front of a lake dyed crimson by the clouds, two people sat around a stone table, slowly drinking tea. After a while, Elder Yu put down the cup. Dragon God Envoy, what's the current situation of the Azure Dragon Hall? The corner of Yi Chen's mouth rose. One good news and one bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? Then let's hear the bad news first. Elder Yu sucked in a deep breath. Hearing the good news before the bad news would make his mood heavy. Hearing the bad news first, then the good news, perhaps it would be better. A week ago, Deputy Sue Danian and I were transporting resources, but we were ambushed. We lost more than 430 people, 23 Sea of Soul Realm experts, and more than 400 astral reaching experts. Hiss. Elder Yu sucked in a breath of cold air, his expression changing several times. This time, the number of Sea of Soul Realm experts was a bit less, but more than 400 astral reaching experts had died. This was even more severe than the loss of Deputy who. Hearing this news, he almost suffocated. Smiling bitterly, Elder Yu gulped down a mouthful of tea. Just as I expected. Soon after, his expression became fierce. If I find out who the spy is, I'll definitely let him taste the pain of being bitten by 10,000 snakes. If there were no spies, how could the Azure Dragon Palace have suffered 2 ambushes? The losses from the 2 ambushes were already close to 800 people. This was a number that made everyone feel pained and angry. Elder Yu was speechless for a long time, his emotions fluctuating. Sighing, Yi Chen said, "Elder Yu, don't you want to hear the good news? Speak." Elder Yu didn't expect Yi Chen to give them any good news. Our side has lost more than 430 people, and the enemy has lost more than 2,000 people. Is this good news? Yi Chen raised his teacup and smiled. More than 2,000 enemies died? Elder Yu couldn't react for a moment. The contrast was too great. Say that again. How many enemies died? Over 2,000. Over 2,000. More than 2,000. Haha, more than 2,000 actually died. That's more than 5 times our losses. Haha. Elder Yu laughed out loud. His laughter shook the mid-ranked maple trees, and fiery red maple leaves fell and danced in the wind. Dragon God Envoy, how did you kill more than 2,000 enemies? Elder Yu's gloomy mood was swept away, and he was in a good mood. He asked curiously. Yi Chen didn't hide anything and recounted what happened that day. After listening, Elder Yu looked at Yi Chen with respect. Dragon God Envoy is truly a godly person. I am full of admiration. Although Yi Chen didn't mention his own factors, how could Elder Yu not know that the key to killing more than 2,000 enemies was Yi Chen? Without him, they wouldn't have been able to avoid the ambush, and the outcome would have been completely different. At that time, they would have been completely annihilated. Dragon God Envoy, this is a big matter. If you don't find it troublesome, please come with me to the Elders' Hall. Everyone is very concerned about the situation of the Azure Dragon Palace. All right. Yi Chen didn't decline. The Elders' Hall was completely packed. The Great Elder revealed a rare smile. His smile became wider and wider, and eventually, he laughed heartily. The second and third elders beside him also laughed in succession. It was a laugh of relief. How could the other elders be so reserved like the Great Elder? Each and every one of them was dancing with joy, using their own movements to express their excitement. The sounds of discussion were simply like boiling water. The Elders' Hall had never been so chaotic before, but no one came out to stop them. More than 2,000 killed. This number is already comparable to the losses of our Dragon God's Celestial Palace in the past few years. This is only one battle. The 4 hostile forces should be feeling the pinch this time. Fortunately, we invited Dragon God Envoy. Otherwise, it would be us who would be feeling the pinch. You don't need to say that. The Elders' Association was in a hubbub. Cough, cough. It was too chaotic, and it was hard to speak. The second elder cleared his throat and calmed everyone down, then said, Dragon God Envoy, how many disciples of my Dragon God's Celestial Palace have died? His bottom line was that half of them had died. Although only 3 of them had Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, and the rest were Astral Reaching Realm, those who could become disciples of Dragon God's Celestial Palace were all geniuses among geniuses. The death of one was equivalent to the death of dozens of ordinary astral reaching experts. 4 died. None of the core disciples died. Yi Chen replied honestly. Good. The second elder let out a sigh of relief. 4 dead was far below his bottom line. Let them continue to temper themselves in the Azure Dragon Palace. After this, we'll send another batch. Hearing these words, the great elder faintly nodded. Battles were the best way to temper oneself. If one didn't die twice, be it in terms of survivability or mental state, they would both improve by a large margin. Of course, tempering themselves twice was enough. The other disciples of Dragon God's celestial palace had to be given a chance as well. After venting his emotions, the great elder gradually calmed down and said, This time, the 4 hostile forces have suffered disastrous losses. They will certainly not let this matter rest. Dragon God Envoy, you will inevitably become their target. They will certainly think of a way to eliminate you. I know. Rest assured, Great Elder. Yi Chen had long since prepared his heart for this. You have the ability to seek fortune and avoid calamity. I believe you'll be fine. As a last resort, you can abandon anyone as long as you survive. The great elder couldn't explain how Yi Chen could avoid the ambush and launch a surprise attack. He could only attribute it to the mystical power of seeking fortune and avoiding calamity. Such a thing shouldn't happen. Yi Chen said confidently. That's for the best. After the meeting, Elder Yu once again brought Yi Chen to the treasury and let him choose the second war chariot. Yi Chen's ability was unquestionable. 1 war chariot was no longer enough. 2 war chariots would undoubtedly make Yi Chen's team even more powerful. If not for the fact that Dragon God's celestial palace only had 1 war chariot left, Yi Chen would have no problem with all 3 war chariots. The new war chariot was called Black Rubber War Chariot. Its quality was a bit weaker than the Golden Dragon War Chariot, but its Flood Dragon head could shoot water bullet. After resting for a night in Red Cloud Residence, Yi Chen set out for the Azure Dragon Palace the next day. In a flash, half a month had passed. The Azure Dragon Palace was very quiet. Lin Songhai's residence was in a corner of Azure Dragon Island. There was no one within 100 li. During this half a month, Sword Qi would frequently soar into the sky, and the weather would change color. In the bet with Yi Chen, Lin Songhai had undoubtedly lost. Ever since he had embarked on the path of Sword Dao, Lin Songhai had never lost to someone of the same generation. His nature was not bad, but he was used to being high and mighty. No matter how peaceful he was, he wouldn't act as if nothing had happened. He didn't hate Yi Chen. He only wanted to become stronger so that he could challenge this rising young sword master someday. Compared to Lin Songhai's side, Yi Chen's side was much quieter. This was because Yi Chen was cultivating blood-severing ghost finger, which didn't cause much of a commotion. It only brought deathly stillness and terror. Sever. Calmly standing under a tree, Yi Chen held his breath and concentrated. With a sharp gaze, he raised his right hand's index and middle fingers and made a stroke. Noiselessly, the upper part of the tree seemed to have lost all its moisture and suddenly dried up. The leaves instantly turned yellow and floated down mercilessly. Apart from the lower part, the rest of the tree became withered and lifeless, as if its vitality had been erased. Blood-severing ghost finger intercepts blood qi, but blood qi contains the essence of life. Trees also contain the essence of life, and thus have the same effect. However, the effect is only half. Only when facing a real body of flesh and blood can it display its greatest effect. Blood-severing ghost finger was indeed difficult to cultivate. Although Yi Chen's comprehension was 5 times higher than ordinary people, he still had no clue in the first few days. Later on, he carefully studied the description in the booklet and realized what kind of state of mind was needed to judge life and death. With a trace of understanding, every time Yi Chen cultivated blood-severing ghost finger, he would use sword intent to sever all distracting thoughts. Finally, he grasped the basic. Of course, the current blood-severing ghost finger was only at the entry level, and was still far away from minor completion. At most, it could only deal with ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts. As the days passed, Yi Chen also improved a little bit. This improvement was extremely small, to the point that there was almost no difference between the first day and the second day. Only after a period of time would he be able to feel that slight difference. As he gained some understanding of blood's severing ghost finger, Yi Chen felt more and more strange and frightening. While cultivating this finger art, he could occasionally see some frightening scenes. On a barren land without any vitality, dead souls wandered about, ghost fires filling the sky. Those dead souls were all covered in tattered white cloth, and the death qi was very dense. Yi Chen didn't know whether this was a strange scene or something else. However, Yi Chen wasn't afraid because of this. If he had to cultivate, he would still cultivate. Moreover, he discovered that whenever the frightening scenes appeared before his eyes, the cultivation of blood's severing ghost finger would become much smoother. It was as if there was an invisible force cooperating with him. Just like that, another half a month passed. Yi Chen's blood-severing ghost finger had improved by about 2 times compared to when he had just started. With a single slash, the vitality of an entire tree would be erased. At this moment, Yi Chen could already occasionally see dead souls wearing white robes. These dead souls were different from the others, as if they had their own intelligence. Their death qi was unimaginably dense.